is an epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins. It seems to be a sudden, general explosion of mass homicide. Consistent reports from witnesses to the effect that people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance were killing and eating their victims prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria. First eyewitness accounts of this grisly development came from people who were understandably frightened and almost incoherent. Officials and newsmen first discounted their eyewitness descriptions as being beyond belief. However, reports persisted. Medical examinations of some of the victims bore out the fact that they had been partially devoured. I think we have some late word that's just arriving, and I'll interrupt to bring this to you. This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims. It's hard for us here to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact. When this emergency first began, radio and television was advising people to stay inside, behind locked doors for safety. Well, that situation has now changed. We're able to report a definite course of action. Civil defense machinery has been organized to provide rescue stations with food, shelter, medical treatment, and protection by armed National Guardsmen. Stay tuned to the broadcasting stations in your local area for this list of rescue stations. This list will be repeated throughout our news coverage. Look for the name of the rescue station nearest you and make your way to that location as soon as possible.
No longer seek occupancy in private residences, no matter how safe or well protected they may be.
They use maybe 5% of the food available in the human body.
The kind of thing.
With that small amount, the body is usually intact enough to be mobile when it revives.
What are you saying? I mean, you're science.
Dummies!
You're suggesting...
Dummies! Dummies!
Excuse me. Listen, quiet.
One wonders whether it's worth saving. Why don't we drop bombs in all the big cities?
You're probably serious.
I'm deadly serious. What are the choices? They won't run out of food, young lady. That's the problem, you see. And they won't run out of food while we're still alive.
We can lift you out to safety. Please answer my call if you can hear me.
We've got to remain logical. We've got to. There's no choice. It has to be. It's that or the end.
Shop.alfaromero.store.
Hey, it's Greg Nicotero. You are, or if you're not, should be watching Alpha Romero on YouTube.
What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday night. Another weekend down, another Sunday night. And here I am. How are you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. I saw Ed mentioned it in the chat a minute ago. Yes, I hope everybody's doing well in the heat. I hope it's not too bad wherever you're at. It's been hot as shit here for the past week. Couple of weeks, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But it's starting to come down a little bit. It got a little cooler. the past couple of days, but we're still talking like, 85, 90 degrees, which is a little better than what we were at, which was like 100, 105. So well, let's just hang in there and be thankful that, that it's not too bad. But how's everybody doing tonight? It's a fun one. It's going to be a tough one, and it has been a tough one for me all week. I've been stressing about this one all week, and I'm working my ass off trying to get some clips together for this one because I wanted to do it right. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Do it live or do it right, whatever. But we're going to count down my personal favorite top 10 Romero film scenes. So when I first put this up and made this the topic for this week, I initially intended on, hey, I'm just going to try to cover every Romero film ever. I'm going to try to narrow it down to my top 10 favorite scenes from Romero's filmography from, 68 all the way up to 2009, 2010. That just wasn't happening. I couldn't do that. So what we're going to do, let you guys know up front, I'm going to do probably 2 or 3 of these. So tonight we're going to cover everything from the 60s and 70s, from Night of the Living Dead all the way up to Dawn of the Dead, my top 10 favorite scenes from the 60s and 70s, and then we'll do one for the 80s, and then we'll do one for the 90s and the 2000s, which the 90s and the 2000s one might be a little easier to compile. But yeah, when I started putting these together and I started realizing, I was like, man, there's a lot. I'm missing a lot. Like, there's a lot that I had to leave out of my top 10. So I'm just we're gonna do these individually by decade, I guess. So yes, tonight we're gonna cover the 60s and 70s, my top 10 favorite Romero film scenes. Little news on the Living Dead weekend front. They announced this year's October show officially has been announced. We'll cover that here in just a second. But before we get into there, let me jump in and say hi to everybody in the chat here. Saw Mr. Brad Aitkins, first one in. What's going on, brother? Says, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Mr. 1911 Guitar Dude. Hope you're doing well. We got William Cobbs in the house, my Evansville brethren. How are you, man? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying cool. Everything's coming in good. Yeah, Ed, what's going on, Ed? Ed's saying, hope everyone's staying safe in the heat. Yeah, I don't know what it's like down in Arkansas, but I knew at one point it was hotter up north than it was farther south for whatever this heat wave is that's going through. But like I said, we're getting a little reprieve, but not much. You can actually go outside without just breaking a sweat standing there. Which of course I'm fully clothed like it's fall, but. But I have brought out the shorts a couple of days, the past couple of weeks. So you have to, or you'll die. But hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're staying cool. Matt Landrum's in the house, jumping in for a second, saying hello before hitting the sack. We'll appreciate that, man. Everybody go check out Matt's channel at Drone of the Dead. He just released a couple more. Of course, we saw the rooftop stuff. We showed it on here. He just released one last week of some drone footage of the Monroeville Mall, the roof, and the surroundings. It's really awesome. It's really cool shit. So check that out. And I think he just released one on the Dwayne Jones gravesite in Atlanta. I can't remember what the name of the cemetery is, but just released that one as well. I know he's got more coming. So everybody go check it out. Subscribe to his channel at Drone of the Dead. Check it out. It's pretty cool stuff. We got Stetsio. What's going on, man? Stetsio. Hello, all. And I figure I'm saying Stezio, but I guess it's Stetsio, like with a T, Stetsio. Because I was watching Jace's channel the other day, Music and Monsters. If you guys aren't subscribed to Music and Monsters, check out that channel. Every Thursday, Jace drops a video, and it's consumable, 5-10 minutes long. You'll see some cool shit, and then he'll let you go. And I love that. It's like on a smoke break, nothing better than checking out Music and Monsters on a Thursday. But I saw him mention your name, Stetsio. So I was like, I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to make sure I pronounce that correctly. Because I try to make a point of that on here. I try to get everybody's name as right as I can. But good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. It's saying, Matt, hopefully it doesn't hit back. Well, you never know. You never know how those sacks will react to being hit, I guess. We got PMC's Midnight Movies. What's going on, PMC's Midnight Movies? I love this channel. I love you, sir. Thank you for, or lady, I don't know. That's a pretty ambiguous name there. But either way, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Always good to have you in here. We got Matthew Horrors in the house. What's up, Matthew? Says, what's up, balls? Let's have Cropsy on Cruel Summer. I wonder what holds balls. That's a little wieldy, but Hope you're doing well, man. I think you were at Living Dead Weekend too. I didn't run into you or meet you, but I think you were there as well. If I'm because I see you on the Dead Pit chat every now and then. So good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. We got Paul Farver, the man himself with the biggin, as they say, the biggin. We'll leave it at that. It's an inside thing. Well, not really. We actually kind of covered Paul's giant cock on the channel the other day, but yeah, not on the round table. Yeah, I'll see if I can dig up that picture and I'll try to straighten it out for everybody. But yeah, what's up, man? This is watching season 4 of The Bear with the wife. Just tuning in to say hi. I'm not sure what The Bear is. Is that the one that's like the show about the chef or something like that? I think I don't watch a whole lot of TV, so I'm a little out of it on a lot of the TV shows. Although there is that new Pittsburgh-based hospital show called The Pit, I think is what it's called. I've heard people talk about that. Kind of piques my interest a little bit. I might want to check that out. But hope you're doing well, man. Say hello to the wife for me, and give that girl my thoughts and prayers, because whoo. Sorry, man, I can't help it. We got Roberts in the house, Mr. Knight 90, Robert Harvitz. What's going on, man? This is hello, Mike, and all. Hope you're doing well. I know you're excited about the Knight 90 4K coming out in October. The new cut of Night of the Living Dead, Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead. So that'll be that's really exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to that as well. Hope you're doing well. We got Stephen Ustrack Jr.'s in the house. Howdy, campers. What's going on, Stephen? How are you doing? It's good to have Steven in here. We got John Vulo, the man himself. Who check out John's channel. He just released this week a video covering a lot of the uncredited and like previously unknown cast members of from There's Always Vanilla. Really cool video. Really cool video, and you can see a lot of the hard work that John puts into this stuff. So go check him out at John Vulo. It's all one lad. I think I put a link to it in my community posts the other day. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's pretty damn cool. Got Bonnie Bailey's in the house. What's up, Bonnie? How are you? Hope you're doing well, Bonnie. We got Michelle is in the house. Dawn of the Dead, at least. She likes Dawn of the Dead, at least. What's going on, Michelle? Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. I hope you're not working too hard. I know you are working towards saving up for the October show, which we'll touch on here in just a moment. Stetsio says, hey, Don said you're too good looking to hide behind that mic. Hey, all right, well, I'll take it from an angle. Now, I like there's a phallic thing going on here. It does seem a little weird, and it does light up, and the lights change, and it kind of looks like I got a titty bar atmosphere going on here, but yeah, hey, as long as it's still working, this mic's a piece of shit, but hey, as long as it's still working for now, I'm looking into getting a different mic. So maybe if I have one come at an angle, maybe that would be a little more complimentary, but I don't know. We'll see. But thank you, Don. Thank you. Great name, by the way. Brandon, what's going on, Brandon? Salisbury's in the house. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too, man. I saw you were at a convention of some sort. I can't remember which one you're at currently, but I saw you. I forget the name. I took a picture with somebody. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I'm always creeping on Facebook and shit, so I see a lot of this stuff. But hope you're doing well, man. I hope you're having a good time. Michelle's saying, working the early shift, day 15 and 19, so heading to bed. I'll catch this at another time. Enjoy the show. Well, good. Thank you for stopping in. Always good to see you. And don't work too hard. You're going to work yourself into an early grave. I mean, you work your ass off, so take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take it from me. Take care of yourself. Robert saying, looking forward to this. Sounds like fun. I mean, I think it would be a lot of fun. Like I said, I got some clips lined up. Narrowing this down to what my top 10 is and trying to put them in some kind of order was just painstaking. Like, it was just like, Jesus Christ, where do I put this? Like, but I had to be honest with myself. Like, some of these, like, I left out some that you'd be like, oh man, that would be kind of an obvious choice that would make a top 10 list. But I had to be honest with myself and just be like, this is my personal favorite top 10. So some of these you guys may not agree with. You'll see this and like, oh, what the fuck is this? But I had to be honest. I'm just going to tell you my opinion. Stesio says, nope, he mispronounced my name. It's like stereo, but with a C. Oh, aha, so I was right. So, aha, Jace. So it's Stesio. I had it right the whole time. So maybe Jace can watch this and correct yourself, Jace. Correct yourself. Very cool. Robert says this is going to be random, but Knight Riders is quickly becoming one of my favorite Romero movies. After his zombie movies and Creepshow, of course. Yeah, I love Knight Riders, and that's another one that I had to, when I decided to just narrow this down to a concise, just the 60s and 70s. I was like, there's so many scenes in Knight Riders that I just love for different reasons. Whether it's an emotional scene, the action scenes, whether comedic. So many in there that I could have put on this list, and I was just like, I'm leaving out so many, so I'm just we're gonna do another one of these for the 80s, because there's a lot of stuff in the 80s, and that'll be really hard to narrow down to a top 10. So, let's see, Miss John's here. John says, thanks. I actually deleted and re-uploaded the video because Russ made a correction, but I did use that opportunity to add a new extra. I noticed that because I posted the original video, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and then I looked and you'd reposted it, and I saw some of the corrections and stuff, so that's really cool. That's got to be a pretty cool feeling when, Russ Striner is right there to correct you on the spot. Like, if anybody's going to correct you on something, you'd want it to be like a Russ or I know you would love if Jack Russo would make some corrections to you and set you straight. And but yes, check that out at John's. Like I said, it's at John Vulo, capital J, capital V. You'll find it, and I think you're working on some stuff for something similar for Jack's wife and the Crazies too, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, because the Crazies is one that there's so many extras and so many people in that yeah, there's a lot of work that you could do on that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you dig up on that one. Matt says, hopefully you got the ending scene from Vanilla on here. Stay tuned, sir. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll just say that. I just watched There's Always Vanilla again for Father's Day. That was my Father's Day movie of choice this year, a couple Sundays ago. And it's a great, and that ending scene is like the epitome of it, which we will or will not talk about a little more later, but it's a great, like, father-son movie. Like, the dynamic and the relationship between Roger McGovern and Ray Lane in that film is just, I love it. I don't know. I think Roger McGovern is super, super underrated in that film. Let's see, Matt saying, John, what was the correction? Oh, I think you had two names switched up or something like that. John says it is. Also, I messed up because I did it all on my own. I'm sure if I asked, it would have been much easier. Also, Russo did like the video. There you go. See, you're making peace with with John Russo. That's funny. But I'm sure Russo appreciates stuff like that. That's an important time period in even John Russo's life and career. So it'd be crazy if he was anything other than just flattered that somebody would put the kind of time and effort into this stuff, into his work. Even if you're not doing it for him specifically, but just the fact that you would put this kind of time and effort into it, I'm sure he's got to be flattered by that, at least, if nothing else. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Maybe we're mending bridges here. Maybe we're mending some bridges. PMC says, Dawn of the Dead is my favorite Romero movie and my fourth favorite movie of all time. That's my number one favorite movie of all time. But does it include my number one favorite scene of all time in any Romero film? Stay tuned to find out. But yes, yeah, I love Dawn of the Dead. It never gets old. And that's another one that was kind of hard to narrow down to just some, like, individual scenes, because it's one of those films, like, the way that I try to put this list together in my head was, okay, so these are the scenes that, because I've seen all of these movies so many damn times at this point, and a lot of the times if I'm working on something for the channel or a video or something like that, I'll just throw on a Romero film and it'll just play in the background. But what are the specific scenes that I will stop specifically to just look up and focus on the TV and just take in? What are those specific scenes? And these scenes that we're going to talk about tonight are those scenes that every time they come on, no matter what I'm doing, I stop and I pay attention because I love them that much for for different reasons, for a whole range of reasons. But yeah, Dawn is definitely a hard one to kind of narrow down though, because everything about that movie I just love. Every scene is like, oh, there's some, because Dawn is like one of those that when I put on, even as background noise, I always end up just kind of getting lost in trying to like pick it apart in some new way. I don't know. I'm just weird like that. Robert says, "Poor Russo, no one trusts the man." Yeah, Russo's definitely a character. He's definitely a character all of his own, but. Yeah, that's what it was, man. I had two names swapped. So, Grande, what's going on, Grande? The legend himself. Happy Sunday, buddy. Happy Sunday, Grande. And Grande, last week I did the ranking of the Romero movie posters last week, and Grande on his show on Grande's Graveyard every Thursday. This past Thursday, he actually went in and found my tier list and did his own rankings on them. And I have to say. The one that stood out, and I respect it, to me it was a total roll-up, but this man put Hungry Wives, the original Hungry Wives one-sheet, in the Louvre. My man put it in the Louvre, and I respect it. I respect it. So yeah, go check it out. Go check out. He was doing rankings of like the first half of the show he's ranking different slashers and stuff, which was really cool. And I was watching it, and then I ended up falling asleep because we were talking about the Heat earlier. Like the Heat just kicked my ass during the day while I'm at work. And by the time I get home, I'm just destroyed. But I went back and watched it, and watched the rest of it, and I saw your rankings, and I was just like, holy shit, Hungry Wives in the Louvre? Come on, man. But I respect it. But I was kind of like, I think Vulo said it last week. Like, it kind of just reminds me of like an old 70s JCPenney's ad or something like that, But I do kind of like that artwork. But I don't know. I just think it's just a weird poster. Although I almost bought one here recently on eBay. I saw somebody had one up, lost the auction or whatever, so I didn't get my hands on it. But I mean, if I can find one for a good price, you better believe I'm going to get. I would totally rock. Right here on the wall. I got it right here next to my affair poster. Would totally rock a Hungry Wives one sheet on the wall. Don't get me wrong. Good to see you, man. And one other thing before I'll go back to Grande here real quick. Grande, one other thing, man. I'm telling you, if you're going to Living Dead weekend this year, if you want to go to that Packers-Steelers game Sunday night, let me know. I think that would be just too perfect. Anyway, Robert says, I don't blame Arrow Video or anyone for that matter, but There's Always Vanilla looks really rough. People's faces look super pink in some scenes. It's just a low budget early 70s film. Like the film stock that they were using wasn't the greatest. It's always looked rough. But I tell you what, that Arrow Video release looks 100 times better than the Anchor Bay DVD release from. Because I mean, it was just like the frame ratio was just all out of whack on that Anchor Bay one. I mean, and that one and Season of the Witch both looked really rough, even on DVD. But Arrow did a bang up job, cleaning those up as best as they could. So you just got to keep that in mind. I mean, it was a film that was made for I think $100,000. Just kind of pieced together. It's just kind of the same story with any of those early Romero films or Martin. Like even Martin looks kind of rough because they were using just kind of not the best film stock. And they were shooting it for black and white, so they lit it for black and white, but ended up, printing it in color. So there's certain parts in Martin that look really kind of like the lighting is too high. I don't know. It's just there's different issues with it, but it's low budget indie regional guerrilla filmmaking, and I love that. I'm all about the little flaws and stuff like that. I could care less about it. Matt says, yeah, the father-son stuff hit me. I'd love to have another discussion with John about Vanilla one day regarding the story and Chris's arc or non-arc, however you view it. That would be a good one, man. Well, let's do that on the show. Let's just do it. There's Always Vanilla show. I don't know how many people would watch, but I don't give a shit. I'll have you and John on. And we'll just nerd out about Vanilla for a few hours because I totally do it. I love that movie. It says, I was going to say if Vanilla popped up, that to me, the movie was The Father and the Son. That's the movie that it should have been. Yeah. Like I said, I watched it on Father's Day. I just had, like, to me, there was something, I mean, this, the whole thing with, Chris, the Chris character, Ray Lane's character, and him finding out that he has a child, and then the whole thing where his relationship with his father and him struggling with trying to come to terms with the fact that he may or may not. We don't really ever find out for sure, but he kind of thinks he has a child, and the struggles of like, oh geez, like maybe I should give up this music thing and try to settle down, and that's where the title comes from, which, that scene may pop up here in just a second. We can get into it a little deeper, but yeah, to me, that's a total, like, that's the best relationship in the whole film. I love Judy and Ray in it. I get what they were going with on that, and I can identify and respect that, but a lot of the father-son stuff, for sure, definitely kind of hits home for me. Akamori Rivals, what's going on, man? It says, Day is my favorite, but I think Dawn is the most rewatchable and fun. Okay. I see more and more people like Day more and more as time goes on. I think people understand it more and more than they did when it first came out. That's one thing I think younger audiences, I don't know how old you are, or what generation you're from, but just younger audiences in general, I think, will identify with Day of the Dead more so than Dawn of the Dead as time goes on. Not just for, the effects or anything like that, but I think just for the fact that, like, shopping malls are kind of are becoming a thing of the past, and I think the younger, as time goes on, the younger audiences will watch Dawn and just say, like, I don't understand. What is this shopping mall thing? It's like I said, when I saw it in the theater, like, one of the biggest takeaways I had was like the kid walking out with his dad, and his biggest takeaway was just like, wow, like, I've never seen a shopping mall like that. Why don't we have shopping malls like that anymore? I was like, yeah, this kid's probably never seen a cool shopping mall in his life. That was probably the first time he ever saw one. But good to see you. Let's see. Granny's saying, thank you, buddy. Yes, it was a blast. Loved your episode on it. Hungry Wives is the greatest. Hey, it takes all kinds, man. It takes all kinds. Let's see here. Robert's saying There's Always Vanilla is actually growing on me a bit. It's not a bad movie overall. It's a bit tragic, but that's okay. Oh yeah, it's definitely, it definitely doesn't end on a high note. That's for sure. Like, it's definitely got some pretty rough, especially like the abortion scene, and I just think Ray Lane's character, I think the Chris character altogether is just kind of a tragic character. In that film, because but that's why I identify with him, because I was exactly him in my 20s. Like, I was just like, I don't want to settle for vanilla. I'm this poor bastard that gets hung up on butter pecan. Like, I want something different. I don't want to end up, working in the baby food factory or whatever. But there's never really a reconciliation there with him and his character, where he comes to terms or comes to grips with what he wants to be, I guess. Yeah, man, let's do it. I'll mark it down, and we'll figure out a time, and we'll do it. Because I'd love to kind of dissect and get into that movie, for sure. Granny says, I'd be there in the chat for that stream if you would Vulo and Landon for sure. Okay, there we go. There's one person that would watch that one. Let's see. Robert says, Dawn is just amazing comfort food. It's a good way to put it. Akamori says, I'm 37, but Day just has a visceral effect on me. The music goes a long way, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's Savini's magnum opus. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of Day of the Dead, for sure. Right, saying me, Vulo, and Matt would be money. Talking about vanilla. I don't know if it'd be money, but it'd be something. It'd be fun. It'd be interesting to me. So, okay, well, shit, we're just going to do a vanilla roundtable. Ed wants to join. Ed says, I'd join you for a vanilla roundtable. All right, I didn't know There's Always Vanilla had this much demand, but all right, I'm here for it. Robert says, let me put it like this. There's Always Vanilla is my favorite dark romance movie. Enough said, I think. Okay, all right. That's a good way to put a dark romance movie. It is kind of that, isn't it? Because it's definitely a tragedy in the end. Not in a weird way where anybody dies or anything like that, I guess, but it's there's no happy reconciliation between the two or anything like that. But yeah, okay, dark romance, I kind of dig that. Yeah, before we get to the countdown, though, I do want to bring up, like I said, Living Dead weekend in October. The official announcement was made on the Living Dead weekend Facebook page earlier this week, October 24th through the 26th. Once again at the Monroeville Mall. This show is going to be Return of the Living Dead is going to be the main theme, the main celebration. I mean, I figure that's what. Why not? It's the 40th anniversary of Return of the Living Dead. Everybody loves Return of the Living Dead. So that's going to be the main one. And I think they're doing that in Dawn of the Dead this year as well. So this is. I mean, they're always doing Dawn of the Dead, but I think this show there's a fairly good chance, I would say, that you might get some of the main players, and maybe some that we haven't gotten yet. So that remains to be seen. That's kind of exciting. But yeah, check it out. TheLivingDeadWeekend.com. Tickets are on sale now for October 24th through the 26th. Like I said, all the Larry's tour. There's going to be tours going on. All the usual, but it's I think the official title is The Return of the Living Dead Weekend. So I thought that was pretty smart. So yeah, tickets on sale now. LivingDeadWeekend.com. Check it out, and be there, because I know there's the talks of like there may be another one next year, next June, but nothing's set in stone for sure yet. And when it comes to Walmart and what they plan on doing with the mall, it's like, who knows after this year. So yeah, if you haven't been, take this opportunity, make it out. And if you have been, come on back. Let's do it again, because we sure have a shitload of fun at these things every year. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there for anybody that didn't see that news and wants to go. Check it out. Tickets on sale now. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the countdown, because I know I'm going to talk a little bit about all of these. So, but PMC says, I like Diary of the Dead, but think it would have been better if it took place in 1968 and was also shot in black and white. Well, I think that would have been kind of difficult because of what George wanted to do and what he was trying to say with Diary of the Dead. I think that's the whole reason he took it back to the beginning of the epidemic to begin with, is so he could use, the new media, and internet and YouTube and stuff like that, which a lot of that stuff was kind of, because I remember thinking back when I saw Diary of the Dead for the first time, I remember thinking to myself, and some of that stuff, like when they're just filming, the zombie attacks and shit, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody would do that. Like they would put the camera down and try to help, or they would do something. And it's like, years later, when everybody has a camera in their pocket at all times, it's like that's the first thing everybody does as soon as an accident or a tragedy or something's going down. It's like, oh, let me take up my phone, let me record this, and I'll be damned that's what they did in the movie, and that's exactly what we're doing now. So I look back on it now and I'm just like, oh yeah, George kind of saw that coming. But I don't think he could have done that. I don't know how he would have done a Diary of the Dead if it was set in 1968, unless they were running around with like a Super 8 camera or something like that. But I think that would just be kind of, you couldn't play with the themes that he was wanting to play with at the time. With Diary of the Dead, so I think that's why he just kind of said it in modern day. Robert says, I love Diary. I know Robert loves Diary of the Dead, and I think Grande's a big Diary fan as well, so Diary's got some love. Diary's definitely got some love out there. William says, we are on the fence, want to go, but waiting for the June announcement. I would say if there is something happening in June, I would say it's probably not going to get announced until after the October show. That would just be my guess. I haven't heard anything concrete about June. I know that they're trying. I think that's the plan. That's what they want to do. But like I said, you just never know when it comes to, like a corporation like Walmart buying the mall and what they want to do with it, and when they want to go and spring into action and start tearing it down or whatever the hell they want to do with it. So, which cheers everybody. A little Iron City tonight, of course. Still have some left over. Granny says, hell yeah, Diary is the best of those last three, in my opinion. I that was my opinion for a long time. Now I kind of lean back towards Land a little bit. I think while Land is not perfect, and I think a lot of the issues that Land has, it was basically due to just time constraints, and because I don't think they had as much time as they needed to kind of flesh that film out and make it what it needed to be. It's still really good to me. There's some things that I'm like, some of the CGI and stuff like that, but But I remember walking out of Diary and thinking, because I saw it in the theater, I remember thinking like, geez, that might be, you know, right up there with Day, in my opinion, when I first saw it. I was just kind of like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And it was George going back to like an indie, low budget filmmaking, and it was something cool, something different. But over time, it's just kind of like, you know, I like it, but I don't love it. I need to go back. It's been a while, honestly, since I've gone back and revisited Diary of the Dead. So that's one I definitely need to go back and revisit. I never did get that Steelbook, that Walmart exclusive Steelbook, because it was just kind of like, it's the same. It's pretty much the exact same Blu-ray. That, you know, nothing new about it. That this came out in what, 2007, 8. Came out right when the film came out. There's no new features or anything to it, and I know now you can find them for like $12 or so on eBay, but for the longest time there, it was like $25-30. I was like, I'm not spending $25-30 on just because it's a Steelbook now. But it's still a Blu-ray. It's not like a new 4K restoration or anything like that. But Robert says, Mike, have you seen The Coffee Table? What's The Coffee Table? Is that a movie? I have a coffee table right over there, but that's the only coffee table I know of. I've never, if it's a movie, I've never heard of it. No, I don't think I've ever heard of The Coffee Table. What is The Coffee Table, Robert? Yeah, Robert loves Land. William likes Land. Land hits. All right. So we got Land. So I think that's the thing. And when Brandon Salisbury was on, when we did that round table, and he mentioned it's like people should start coming around, or need to kind of come around on on George's later films, because those are going to be the ones that are going to be the classics, because his older films, the people from those older films are not going to be around forever. And so we need to embrace some of George's, like, because George loved those films. Like, George's second favorite of his zombie films after Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead was his favorite, but Survival was his second favorite. Which, I mean, of course, is like his last film, so it was the most like current to his thinking and his style or whatever. So I understand it on that aspect. But George loved all those. He loved Land. I remember when I think Sue's Romero, his widow, I think I remember hearing her say that they watched it one night when they first met, and he was kind of showing her some of his movies, and they watched Land of the Dead, and I don't think he'd seen it since it came out, and he was just like, oh wow, that actually plays a whole lot better than I remember. Like, that actually plays really well, and he was kind of impressed with it. So yeah, I'm guilty of it too. I guess I don't give them as much love as maybe they deserve, but again, it was just such a high bar, and I remember when those movies came out, and I remember thinking like, it's just not what I wanted, man, just not what I wanted. But that's the thing about George, is that he wasn't just making things trying to give fans what they wanted. He was making what he wanted to make, and if you liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, what can you do? That was kind of his way of thinking. It was just like, what can you do? But William says, in college, when Land came out, we were pumped to going to see it. Return to the Zombies. Oh yeah, dude, I was there opening night. Opening night, I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what I did. It was like that summer. I was 16, first job, first car, first paycheck was when that came out, over the summer when I, from school, and was going on a first date with this girl. And I was like, dude, we're going to go see our first date. We're going to go see Land of the Dead. And she was like, all right. She didn't know anything about Romero or anything like that. But I remember we went to like Olive Garden for dinner, and went to the mall, and I ended up picking up a Halloween 2 11x17 poster and a Clockwork Orange 11x17 poster. I don't know why I remember this night as vividly as I do. And then I remember we went to the theater, and they had the poster with the two reviews on it from the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. And I remember thinking like, wow, that is the coolest poster I've ever seen. It's just like, I've never seen a horror movie poster like that. It looks like an art film. And I was like, holy shit, like, this is what I wanted. And I remember seeing the movie and coming out of it thinking, it was like, it's cool. There's definitely some cool shit about it, but I didn't get it. I went back to see it in the theater like 2 or 3 times after that. So, and I liked it more and more every time I saw it, because I think once I just kind of put my expectations out and just kind of let the film hit me however the film was going to hit me, and whatever the film actually was, I appreciate it a lot more. And I appreciate it more and more over the years. I just did that watch along about a month or so ago. And just going back and rewatching it again, it's very funny. Like, you see George's sense of humor in it a lot. Some of the dialogue is really good. The performances, I know some people are not too high on Simon Baker, and but it's Dennis Hopper. I like John Leguizamo in it. He kind of plays his role perfectly fine. Ozia, you can't go wrong with Ozia. I'm sorry, but I don't know. There's a lot to like about it. There is. Eugene Clark, I don't know. Some of his stuff as Big Daddy is not my favorite, but it's just that fucking thing. I don't know. That, to me, every time he does that, I'm just like, that's it's a little pitchy, dog. It's a little pitchy. Let's take that down a notch. Let's do something different. Robert says, yes, it's a movie. Know nothing about it. Know nothing about it, and go watch it. Holy fuck. Okay. The Coffee Table. Interesting. Is that like streaming somewhere? Because I don't think it hit the theaters or anything. Not that I know of. It's saying, remember when you watch Diary, it isn't Romero's movie, it's Creed/Deborah's movie, so any flaws aren't George. Hey, there you go. That's a good way to look at it. George didn't even make that movie. Stezio says Land is definitely the top of the last three. The other two are just too cheap looking, and the storyline didn't hit for me. Hey, totally get that. I will say some of the best stuff in Survival to me is some of the cinematography and some of the look of the film. Because I mean, it was George making a Western. It was George making his Western. So I do appreciate some of that aspect of it, which I kind of appreciated coming off of Diary, which was all that, first person camera stuff. But William says, we hit Stadium 16. It was big and then faded for me in comparison to the original three. Yeah. The original three, I try to separate them. Even though Land is technically a part of that storyline there, I just separate. To me, like, the best way to watch those last three, watch Diary first, Survival, and then Land. Because you're following that Alan Van Sprang character from Diary, because he's in that. He's in Survival as like the lead, and then he's also different character. He's Brubaker or whatever in Land of the Dead, but he's still, you can kind of get away with thinking like, oh, it's probably same character, soldier guy, in charge of watching over the Dead Reckoning or whatnot. So those last three, that's the order I think makes sense, that you could watch those and kind of get it, because they all kind of fill in that same time period, the 2000s. Let me hit these real quick, and then we'll get into the top 10. PMC says, Survival is fine, definitely the weakest of the newer trilogy, but for me, the two families feuding took away from the zombies and even the horror aspect. But again, I mean, that was just that was George's whole point with making that film, was showing, again, just the two warring ideologies at war with one another. Like, they can't agree on how to deal with the situation, so they end up being more so at war with each other than actually the situation at hand, which, again, is kind of true to life in a lot of ways. William says, I feel like it went too far with the smart zombies. Yeah, I could see that. The zombies riding the horse and then eating the horse, and in Survival, I thought that was a little too far. But again, when you go back and read, which Matt just visited the archive and saw that original treatment for Dawn of the Dead in the early 70s. I mean, that was all in George's mind from day one when he started, because in that original treatment of Dawn of the Dead, the zombies are pretty much doing that. They're driving cars and communicating telepathically, kind of like they do in Land of the Dead. So, I mean, all that stuff, it wasn't like George just kind of pulled that out of his ass over the years where he just kind of had no more ideas. That was kind of always George's idea. That was his plan. But instead of just doing it all at once right up front, he kind of spread it out over, 4 decades or whatever it was. So all that stuff was in George's head originally. It just kind of took him longer to get there than he originally wanted. Robert says, it's funny you say that because I just watched Land of the Dead again. There's too much of Big Daddy screaming. Yeah, there definitely is. You can definitely agree with that. Robert says, George always makes me always wanted to make a Western, and the last movie he made was a Western. I really like it. Yeah, I mean, it was just... Because, I mean, at that point, they wouldn't let George make anything other than zombie films, so it's like, okay, well, I want to make a Western, but I can't make... They won't give me the money to make, like a spaghetti Western or something like that. So I might as well just make a zombie film and make it as Western as I can, basically. All right. Hey, there he is. There's Synthetic. What's going on, brother? Say they're better late than never. Well, glad you're here. You're just in time. About to start the countdown. The top 10 favorite Romero scenes in the 60s and 70s. Since you missed the beginning, Synth, I had to narrow this down to just a time period because I could not just whittle all of George's work, like all those years of George's fucking work, into just 10 favorite scenes. There was just too much. So tonight we're doing 60s and 70s. We'll do one for the 80s and then one for the 90s and the 2000s. But tonight's the 60s and 70s. So let me get this lined up here. All right, you guys ready to do this? My personal, like I said, this is just my personal opinion. Some of these guys may say, well, what the fuck what is he talking about? My personal top 10 favorite Romero film scenes of the 60s and 70s. So let's get this thing kicked off with a scene, the scene that began it all. The scene that started everything. George's film career, an entire new genre in horror films. But at number 10, from Night of the Living Dead, they're coming to get you, Barbara.
I wonder what happened to the one from last year. Each year we spend good money on these things. We come out here and the one from last year's gone.
Well, the flowers die and the caretaker or somebody takes them away.
Yeah, a little spit and polish. You can clean this up. Sell it next year. Wonder how many times we bought the same one. Hey, come on, Barb. Church was this morning, huh? Hey, I mean, praying's for church, huh? Come on.
I haven't seen you in church lately.
Well, there's not much sense in my going to church. Do you remember one time when we were small, we were out here? It was from right over there. I jumped out at you from behind the tree, and Grandpa got all excited, and he shook his fist at me, and he said, "Boy, you'll be damned to hell." Remember that? Right over there. Well, you used to really be scared here.
Johnny.
You're still afraid.
Stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
And then no spoilers. There will be some spoilers in this, so if you guys haven't seen some of these movies, you may want to look away. But yes, number 10 on my list from Night of the Living Dead, the opening cemetery scene. They're coming to get you, Barbara. And to me, now I think Robert said, oh, this should be higher, and maybe it should. But this is an iconic scene. It's the scene that began everything, and to me, it's the perfect opening scene to a horror film or zombie film. It starts in the cemetery. Just from the beginning all the way through until she gets to the farmhouse, it feels There's something different about it. And I remember seeing it when I first saw this Night of the Living Dead for the first time, because I saw the remake first. When I saw Night of the Living Dead for the first time, it was on IFC. And I remember the cemetery scene really stick, because at the first time I saw Night of the Living Dead, the original, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I was still too young. It was black and white. It was a little herky-jerky. And I was just so used to Savini's, because I'd seen that one multiple times at that point. And that was just kind of my Night of the Living Dead at that point. So the first time that I see this version, the cemetery scene definitely sticks out, and it's so different than the remake because it's a slow build. It takes its time. There's more interaction between Johnny and Barbara in this, and it's just one of those scenes. It feels like an old school kind of B horror movie type of scene. Oh, we're in the cemetery, and it feels kind of childlike almost at times. But it's like once the horror begins, it kind of takes you in a different direction. But I love this scene. It's one of the only scenes. I wouldn't say one of the only scenes, but one of the few scenes that I can recite verbatim from the time that they pull up in the cemetery to the time that she gets attacked. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Like, I know it's just one of those scenes that I just know like the back of my hand. It's like, they ought to make the day the time changes the first day of summer. What? Well, it's 8 o'clock and it's still light. Well, a lot of good the extra daylight does us. We still got a 3-hour drive back. We're not going to be home until after midnight. Well, if it really bugs you, Johnny, you wouldn't do it. You think I want to blow Sunday on a scene like this? I figure we're either going to have to move Mother out here or move the grave into Pittsburgh. Well, she can't make a trip like this. Oh, the hell that she can't. Is there any of that candy left? No. Look at this thing. We still remember. I don't even remember what the man looks like. Johnny, it takes you 5 minutes. You had 5 minutes to put the wreath on the grave, 6 minutes to drive back, or 6 hours to drive back and forth. Anyway, that was just an exercise in my brain to see if I really could do it. And yeah, I'm pretty psychotic, I think. But I love that entire scene, not just the line and stuff. I think that's the most famous, one of the most famous lines in horror film and film history. They're coming to get you, Barbara. I think it's just, like I said, it's just the perfect opening scene to open up the entire thing, and they had no idea that it was going to be a big deal or they were going to make more of these movies down the road. It was just, great setting. The music when the car is pulling up to the cemetery is pretty flawless, pretty perfect. I don't know. I love this scene. I think it's number 10 on my list. But again, I had to leave out so much. There's so many other scenes I can do like an honorable mention or something at the end of this. But yeah, I think They're Coming to Get You, Barbara, Night of the Living Dead, number 10 on my list. What do you guys think? I saw some of you guys saying, like, number 10? Why isn't this higher? PMC says Night had it all, from man fighting against man, zombies using tools to attack, rocks thrown at headlights, through a car window, breaking into the house. Romero nailed the genre in one movie. Yeah, I mean, it set the groundwork. Night of the Living Dead set the groundwork. I mean, and they were making this from they were kind of making it up as they went. Like, can these things move fast? It's like, no, they need to move slow, but they kind of, with Bill Heinzman's like, they got to move fast enough to keep up with a moving car type of thing, But yeah, they're using tools in Night of the Living Dead. I mean, that's, and they do that in Dawn. They do that in Day. I mean, they had these ideas in place, but I think in terms of the Romero idea of the evolution of the zombie, I kind of set Night apart a little bit. I know a lot of that stuff was his idea, but again, Night of the Living Dead was such a collaborative effort that I'm sure a lot of those ideas were coming from many different places. William says, I was telling my daughter about the elevator scene with Flyboy last night. That's got to be in the top. Maybe. We'll see. Like I said, I had to narrow these down to 10. Yeah, Robert, I'm amazed this is number 10, though. Yeah. I mean, yeah. If I had to be honest, like, I love this scene. I love it, but there's so many others that I love for other reasons, But... And maybe it could have been a little higher, but I figure, what the hell, let's kick it off. Let's kick off the top 10 with a bang. Stezio says Night of the Living Dead was to be number one for him. So yeah, no, I mean I totally get it. Like it was there may be some other scenes from Night of the Living Dead coming up, but I think it is just a great scene. But hey, nothing. I couldn't argue if you had it at number one on your list. I couldn't argue. Since it says so wild, the cemetery looks the same now, minus the trees. Yeah. I mean, that's cemeteries don't really change too much over time, but yeah, without the trees, it's I think the trees, I think the tornado or whatever came through years ago knocked down a lot of those trees and got rid of a lot of those trees. So, but yeah, it is pretty crazy when you're there now. You're looking, and you're matching up shots and stuff, and you realize how many trees used to be there and how many are just not there anymore. Steven says, wow, can't believe you put this low, but this is an opinion list, so I respect your opinion. Hey, okay, all right. I'm getting some heat already. It says, Johnny sounds like the Cowardly Lion when he says, here comes one of them now. Yeah, he does, kind of, doesn't he? And I've always loved the, the "you boy, you'll be damned to hell," which I think was an overdub from Carl Hardman. It wasn't even Russ doing that, but I always thought that was weird because it always sounded so different than than Russ's voice. So when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it does kind of sound like Carl Hardman, doesn't it? Since says, I'll be in and out for a while, busy driving Uber for the numerous San Francisco Gay Pride Day attendees. Lots of business. The city is packed this way. I bet. Yeah, San Francisco Gay Pride Day. Yeah, I'm sure you got plenty to do, plenty on your hands. So, Mike's a gangster. Hell yeah, fucking gangster. John says, I agree. I think my number one scene tonight is the opening too, when Barb enters the farmhouse. So, maybe that might pop up a little later. Granny says, great pick, man. That scene is timeless. The first exposure to it would have been Halloween 2. That's right. That would have been, my first exposure to it too, as well. But I didn't know it at the time. I was just, like when I was younger, of course, we always watched, Friday the 13th, Halloween, those movies before I really discovered Romero. And I do remember it from watching Halloween 2. That opening scene, I had no idea what it was. It just looked like some old black and white horror movie to me. And I was just like, oh, okay. But then I kind of realized that later. But yeah. But when I first saw the actual movie, my God, I was blown away. Like I was saying, the first time I saw it, because the first Night of the Living Dead I saw was Tom Savini's Night 90. So that's what I was kind of used to. And then when I saw this and I was like, it's a little, I don't know. I was like 12, 13 at the time. And I'd seen Dawn. I'd seen Savini's Night. I think I'd seen Day at that point too. But it took me a second viewing to actually sit down. Actually, the first time that I remember actually watching Night of the Living Dead all the way through, just sitting there watching it was, I think it was A&E. They had it on at like 2 a.m. And I remember recording it. And with commercials, and it was, of course, the 2 a.m. commercials, which was just all like infomercials and shit like that. But I remember that's when I actually sat down and watched it all the way through for the first time, and that's when I got it. That's when I was just like, wow, I love it. And that's actually, in terms of like as an inspiration for me wanting to become a filmmaker, like I love Dawn of the Dead, but that was kind of like one of those things. Was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do something like that, but I could totally do Night of the Living Dead. I could totally find a farmhouse or some secluded place like that. We could totally go film in a cemetery. That's when I was like, oh wow, I could do that. So Night of the Living Dead in some aspects is probably more inspirational to me from my own aspirations of being a filmmaker when I was younger than Dawn even, really. Robert says, you do you, bro. Everyone has their own opinion. It's okay. Hey, yeah, like I said, some of these may be controversial, but just bear with me. Brett says, that's my wife's number one Romero scene. Happy it's in the top 10. I mean, yeah, I think that's a lot of people's number one. Like I said, I do love that whole opening. I think it's a perfect opening for a film, especially a horror film. But hey, who knows what else is on this list? Who knows what's coming up next? So yeah, that was number 10 on my list. Number 9 on my list. This is one we just talked about. And it did crack the top 10 because I do love this scene. We've talked about this film a little bit already, but number 9 on my list, there's always vanilla, Chris.
Dad, I just don't want to go to work in your baby food factory. And I don't want to sell vacuum cleaners. I don't want to sell little toy plastic aircraft carriers, and I don't want to... I don't know what I want.
Chris, I think I understand what you're talking about. A little bit, anyway. But these problems are a little bit like going to Howard Johnson's for ice cream. You can get all kinds of wild, exotic flavors, but somehow you always wind up with vanilla.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Dad, I could cry.
But you get what I mean?
I don't see how...
Listen, all you have to do
problems
is occasionally, just once in a while, listen to what...
No, wait,
there has
now,
to be
hold on.
something
Now, just a
at
minute, Dad. Now, how about the poor bastard that gets hung up on butter pecan?
You're disappointed when he can't get it. There's always vanilla, Chris. Always vanilla.
That's what it comes down to, huh?
If you get what I mean.
Yeah, so number 9 on my list from There's Always Vanilla. Roger McGovern, Ray Lane, father and son sit down at the end of the film. I've always, when I first saw There's Always Vanilla, because when I first saw it, it was always the long lost Romero film. It was included on, it was the flipper disc with the Season of the Witch on Anchor Bay that Anchor Bay put out. And so I remember when I first saw the film, I was attracted to it because it was 70s, it was Pittsburgh, it was so flashy, it was something different. And I totally identify, especially because I was a teenager at the time, I really identified with, the relationship aspect of it, I guess. But the older I got throughout my 20s, like I said earlier, I watched it for Father's Day this year because of the father-son relationship between Roger McGovern and Ray Lane. Ray Lane's just kind of like, if you haven't seen There's Always Vanilla, so like Ray Lane is kind of this wild guy, like on his own, can take on the world, has all the answers to life's problems, doesn't take much seriously, because he thinks everything is stupid, everybody's stupid, and everything is just kind of a joke, and he's just brushing everything off. Work, careers, whatever. He plays music. He's a studio musician. He's kind of just kind of running wild. He comes back to Pittsburgh, where his hometown is, and finds out he may have a child. And that kind of makes him want to stick around Pittsburgh because he doesn't know for sure. But the reality of maybe having a child kind of hits him. And I think in that film, it also kind of brings him a little closer to his dad in certain scenes. Because, him and his dad kind of have some different talks at the beginning. And then at the end, when, the relationship that he had with Judith Ridley, doesn't quite work out, he kind of ends up going back home. And trying to figure out, what am I doing in my life? I may have a kid. He has a kid on the way that he doesn't know about. And so it's just the sit down there, that scene where he is sitting there with his dad. He's just kind of like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know what, but all I know is I don't want to work in your baby food factory. I don't want to just settle and just be, another statistic, just another 9-to-5er, another ham and egger, as the great Bobby Heenan would say. But it's just that perfect line there, and I always wondered what the damn title of the movie even meant. There's Always Vanilla. I always thought it was a great title, but I didn't know what it meant. It just sounded like something kind of groovy and hip, from the 70s, where it's like, oh, baby, there's always vanilla. So I didn't know anything about it. But then when I finally saw the movie and got to the end, I was like, oh, it all makes total sense. I love the analogy there, where it's like going to, Howard Johnson's or Baskin Robbins or whatever it is now. It's like you got all these exotic flavors. You got all, cookies and cream, butter pecan, and all this stuff. But, if you're not there and you don't have those options, there's always vanilla. Anywhere that there's ice cream, there's always vanilla. So maybe sometimes it's just okay to to just settle and just accept vanilla. I always loved that. That was always kind of a big struggle for me in my 20s growing up. I never wanted to settle for vanilla. Still don't, for some reason. I'm still just like looking for some excitement, something new, you know. But at the same time, I also understand that, you know, that's just how life is. You can't be the poor bastard that gets hung up on butter pecan all the time. Sometimes vanilla, it's still ice cream, it's still delicious. But so I don't know. That scene always was just kind of like the perfect capper to that film for me. Just that little conversation there, and I gotta say, like, just Roger McGovern's performance in that film I've always thought was really underrated. And of course, Roger McGovern was one of the ghouls in Night of the Living Dead. He's the guy. He's kind of got like the toga looking thing on. You can kind of see him. So I didn't know what kind of acting experience he had prior to Vanilla or Night of the Living Dead. I don't think he was an actor. That'd be a good John Vulo question, but I don't think he was an actor, really. I think he was, I want to say, like an advertising guy or something like that. But he does a great job in Vanilla. He is a very natural actor, which is like the hardest thing to do when you're trying to act, is trying to be natural, trying to come across natural. So I've always loved his performance. Ray Lane was a great actor in the Pittsburgh area for years and years and years. Good friend of John Amplis. Did a lot of theater work and stuff. Didn't really pan out and become as big as I think a lot of people thought he might have been at the time when they were doing Vanilla. Because of course Vanilla started out as just kind of like a promotional thing that they were trying to do to get Ray Lane's name out there, because they were thinking he had a lot of potential to be kind of a next big thing to come out of Pittsburgh, but didn't quite work out, and he ended up sticking around Pittsburgh for most of his career, doing mostly theater stuff. But yeah, I've always loved that scene. I love that film, and watching it again, just the father-son dynamic, I don't know. It just hits me where it needs to hit me, I guess. But what do you guys say? I'm sure there's somebody here saying, really, there's always Vanilla ahead of Night of the Living Dead. Well, where was I? Get you guys comments. So yeah, number 9, There's Always Vanilla. There's Always Vanilla, Chris, from There's Always Vanilla. I think I was here. William says, I still have my VHS copy of Joe Bob Briggs' Return to Living Dead 2 with commercials. Oh, that's cool. I forget who was talking about that, but yeah, somebody was talking about that here recently. Just the old Joe Bob Briggs Monster Vision. It may have been Ed, actually. I think he commented right here. I have my Monster Vision Joe Bob tapes as well. I'd love to see a lot of those. You should start putting those up. I don't know if you can or not, but yeah. Robert says it's a good scene. Yeah, I agree. It says, yep, the father-son theme was the missed opportunity. Well, I think they played into it enough, because I think once they get away from the father-son stuff at the beginning and they kind of go into more of like the relationship between him and Judy, I mean Ray, I think that was necessary for where the story needed to go. But I think the way that they play into it enough, because I mean he's also dealing with the fact that he may have a child. Do I stick around for the kid type of thing? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they could have played into it a little more. But I think from the bits that they do play into it, I think it works so well for me. Stezio says Vanilla is one of the few Romero films I've not seen. I got to get a copy. You should, man. You should definitely check it out. Like I said, it's not a horror film. It's something completely different. It's not a film that George even particularly liked for years and years and years. He rarely ever talked about it, and anytime he did, he would always kind of point out, like, yeah, I don't really give a shit about this movie. But it's also a film that I think he came around on. Because of the story where him and Mike Felsher, before he passed away, sat down and went through his whole filmography and watched all of his films again and talked about it. And I remember Felsher saying, like, yeah, George watched Vanilla and started kind of tearing up as he was watching it, and he kind of just said, that was a lot better than I remember. Like that really there's definitely more to it than I ever thought. because it was a film that George didn't write it. He never felt like he truly directed it. He always said it was more of a film that he edited more than anything, which I love George the editor, which may come into play here in just a moment too. So I've always appreciated it for that aspect, but I do think you should check it out, man. Davey Deathray. Hey, everyone. First time here. Well, welcome, Davey Deathray. That's a badass name. Good to have you in here, sir. Hope you're doing well. It says clip, when you just said there's always Vanilla Baby, play that at the end of every video. Okay. There's always Vanilla Baby. Yes, welcome, Davey. Since says always vanilla and some chocolate syrup to make it shine. Yum, yum. That's a good way to put it. Steven says, to be fair, I haven't seen the whole movie, and like I wrote earlier, this is subjective, but just judging on the acting. Number 10 blew number 9 away, but once again, just my opinion. Well, what was wrong with the acting, man? I'm telling you. I like McGovern and Ray Lane. They have a good chemistry in that film. Let's see. John says, as far as I know, he wasn't an actor. He worked for Ketchum as a copy supervisor. There you go. May have dabbled in acting, but nothing I'm aware of. Well, I mean, for somebody that's not a trained professional actor, I think he does a fantastic job in Vanilla. Just my opinion, Stephen. Since says, been a huge fan of Joe Bob since I found his weekly column in the San Francisco. Yeah, that's right. He used to do the San Francisco Chronicle in the 80s, compiled a few books, too. Steven says, there's a thin line between natural and wooden. This scene may be the litmus test. By the way, chocolate is best flavor, and I'm talking about ice cream. Oh, come on. All right, well, like I said, it's all opinion. But Davey says, I'm a massive Romero fan, and I talk horror all the damn time here on YouTube. Happy to be here. Well, I'm glad you're here, man. If you like Romero and you want to talk Romero, that's what we do here. So, welcome to the party, sir. So yeah. All right, controversial one there. All right. There's always Vanilla at number 9. This will be an interesting one. I want to get you guys' take on this one, but number 8 on my list. And we were just talking about I mentioned it in one of the roundtables here recently. Maybe my favorite aspect of George's filmmaking is his editing. I think George was a masterful filmmaker. Good director in terms of the typical director things, George director, writer, George did a lot. But for me, my personal favorite stuff that he would do was when he would do his own editing. When George the editor, to me, that's when he was like a fish in water. So number 8 on my list, I think this is a perfect example of when George, this film particularly, when George started to master the editing aspect of filmmaking. But don't give me that shit, boy. Yes, number 8, from the Crazies, the raid scene. Again, to me, that's just George's editing. I love that. I love George's montage editing there. Some of the stuff, like just the little things in it, like the shot of the soldiers kicking the toy soldiers as they walk by, or the little kid like trying to fight the soldier. Just little things like that. It's like you don't see that in movies now. There's something so natural. It feels like a documentary, like you're watching a documentary on this town being raided and quarantined. And the use of children in that, to me, is very terrifying as well. There's something really uncomfortable, especially that scene when the little kid with the machine gun, and they come storming in, and the look of terror on his face was just like, when I first watched The Crazies, that was like one of the things that like stuck with me, was that look of like legit and actual terror on this little kid's face when the soldiers come in. Yeah, that's a scene. Anytime I'm watching The Crazies, like I said, if it's playing in the background, I'm doing something else. Like when that scene comes on, I watch it because I love the editing. I love the pacing of it. Just the little nuances. Like I said, just George's little weird shots of like literal dog shots. Like that's what George always called like a shot of something if he needed to, like just a shot of a clock, or the shot of the soldiers kicking the little toy soldiers over. George always called call those dog shots. Just a shot of a dog. There's a literal dog shot in it. But yeah, to me, like I love George the editor, and the craziest to me is like George going full like fucking like I'm gonna figure this editing thing out. Like I'm gonna make, because I mean you start to see, you see a lot of the editing in Dawn of the Dead in the Crazies, in my opinion. Like the way that George cut Dawn of the Dead together to give it the pacing. Because if you watch Dawn of the Dead, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of movement in Dawn of the Dead, but there's very few, if any, camera movements. It's all very stationary, and it's all just cut together later like a puzzle. It's just cut and paste. And then it begins with the Crazies to me, in terms of George's editing, and in terms of his pacing and cutting together action scenes. And of course, by the time he gets Dawn of the Dead, he's 10 times better at it. And of course, he spent a lot of time learning more about technique and stuff, working on the winners and all that. But the Crazies is when you start to really see George's style coming together in terms of his editing. And I love the Crazies for that. Like the Crazies, it's low budget and it's rough in places for sure, but that scene itself, I love the editing in that scene, and I also just love the vibe of the soldiers just breaking into these houses and dragging children out of bed, and the old people are like, "What's going on here, fellas?" Like, tell me, like, just dragging these normal people out, not saying anything, and they look so intimidating, and they look like something from another planet with the gas mask and the whole hazmat suits and everything like that. They look like something from another planet, but at the same time, you got to remember, it's like when the soldiers stealing the fishing rod. It's like, oh yeah, they're just people. There's still some humanity. They're humans. There's humanity to them. Like when he takes a little girl back to get her, her toy doll, her baby doll. I don't know. I love that scene. I love the pacing of it. I think it's covers a lot. When they break into the hotel, and which that hotel, I would love to visit that hotel, but that hotel is no longer standing, unfortunately. I think it was in Zelianopol, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, love that scene. Number 8, the raid from the Crazies, and the Crazies is another one that there were so many other scenes that I could have picked, like kind of in that same vein. The scene with the old woman with the knitting needle. Hello, that's a great scene too. But I think just in terms of like George's editing style and the pacing of it, it's early Dawn of the Dead. Like you start to see George's style that he would have by the time he gets to Dawn. You start to see that develop in the Crazies, and I think that scene is like a perfect example of that. So yeah, number 8 on my list. What do you guys think? I feel like a lot of you guys are like, what the fuck is he talking about? Let's see here. John says, I was just looking up some info on this place, the bar, to be specific. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's cool because a lot of the shooting locations for the Crazies is still pretty, the ones that are there look pretty much the same. Like all the stuff in Evans City, the church, St. Killian's in Mars, Pennsylvania. A lot of that stuff still is there and hasn't changed. I mean, that's the thing about those small towns like Evans City and Mars and Zelianopol. It's like, not a lot changes. They don't really upgrade a whole lot to those little towns very often. So, Robert says, editors are the unsung heroes of all movies. I agree. And to me, like George, that's one thing that separated George as a filmmaker from a lot of other independent filmmakers at the time, of the guerrilla filmmakers or whatever you want to call them, the low budget horror filmmakers, is that he was such a better editor than any of the other ones were. Like the way that he could pace a scene and create a tension and a vibe to a scene through his editing, which again we'll talk about a little more later. But I think that's just sets him apart from any other, low budget independent horror filmmakers at the time. And I think that was his secret. And of course, he learned all that, working on commercials, like the commercial work, trying to condense everything to 30 seconds or a minute, and trying to get a message across. So yeah, I totally agree with that, Robert. Since says, not such a bad soldier, he'd let her get her dolly. That's right. That's right. See, there's still people. See. Stegio says, wow, Pennsylvania 73 or Los Angeles 25. Yeah, that's a good point. That could be many places right now, honestly. It says, great scene, the girl trying to grab her teddy bear, the army men toys on the floor. Just yeah, I love those little nuances. Like I said, the little kid like trying to fight him off. It's like you would not see that in a movie now. They wouldn't even think to include that, or the kids would just be. That's what I like. You could tell that those kids were not actors. Like all the kids that they were rounding up in that scene were not professionally trained actors. And there's nothing worse than a professionally trained child actor, because they're just like acting. Well, you get a kid, you tell them like, "Hey, go fight just get a regular kid and tell them go fight." The soldier guy. That's what they're gonna do. They're just gonna start swinging, trying to punch the soldier dude in the face. I love it. Robert says, "I still like the reimagining of the Crazies better than George's movie." Well, everybody's got their own thing, Robert. Everybody's got their own thing. I don't understand it, but you do you. Like you said a minute ago, you do you. William says, opening at 28 years later did it, then it tanked from there. Yeah. A lot of the Crazies. There's definitely 28 Days Later too. There's a lot of the Crazies in those films. The Crazies, I guess you could say, is technically maybe the first. I don't know if I'd say the first, but maybe one of the most influential infected persons movies. Because the Crazies is not really. I mean, it plays kind of like a zombie movie. But it's not really. It's more of an but it really has nothing to do with the infected people as much as it does the idiocy and just the insanity of the people that are trying to contain it and trying to fix the problem, which I think is the brilliant thing about the Crazies, which that remake did not fucking understand, Robert. I'm gonna tell you right now. Davey says he took what he learned here and applied it to Dawn of the Dead. Absolutely. John says, believe it or not, I think most of that raid stuff was directed by Heinzman. That's fairly probably true. That seems like a lot of second unit stuff. So I mean, I guess tip of the hat to Bill Heinzman there, because Heinzman was the DP on the Crazy, so that would make a lot of sense. That totally seems like something they would just kind of run out and do, like just get a lot of those shots. And I'm sure George would just say, shoot as much as you can, and we'll figure it out later, because that's kind of how George did things back in the day. It says, Rob Zombie talked about the look of terror in that boy's face, something he has strived to do. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever heard that. That's kind of cool. But yeah, that fucking scene, man. I remember the first time I saw that, before I even saw the Crazies. And the first time it piqued my interest, what the fuck is this movie? I didn't even know it was a Romero film, but in that documentary, The American Nightmare, that they played on IFC back in the day, they showed some different scenes and stuff from the Crazies, and it always just caught my attention. Like a lot of that raid scene and stuff there. And one of the scenes, one of the shots was that little boy, the look of terror on that little boy's face. To me, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, is this just news footage? Is this something that they took from the news? It looked so realistic to me. It looked so real. And then I realized, oh, this is another Romero film. I have to see the Crazies. But yeah, it totally stuck with me from the first time I saw it, and still to this day, it's one of those moments that I just think is perfect. Just that, because I mean, it's a genuine look of terror. I'm sure people look at that now and say that that's like child abuse or something, but whatever. Davey says, love the Crazies, underrated flick. I agree. Robert says, it's just when it came into my life, that's all. That's totally understandable, man. I get you. John says, Heinzman had said that he took over at the very end because he had to leave because Cameron was about to... Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was you that mentioned that, or I have heard that before, actually. Or I may have heard that in... I think there was an interview with Bill Heinzman on the Flesh Eater Blu-ray, if I remember correctly. I think it's the Flesh Eater Blu-ray. There's an interview with Heinzman somewhere. I do remember him saying that, actually. So yeah, you're totally right. I remember you pointing that out. All right, so that's number 8. on my list. My crazy ass list. Number 7 on my list. It's about to get crazier. Even crazier than the crazies. But I love this. We talked about this from Living Dead Weekend. I actually got a chance to meet, finally, for the first time, finally got to meet Ken Peters and got him to sign an 8x10 for me because I love this scene so much in Jack's Wife. I don't know what it is about it. I love scenes where they're setting up. And I love the entire opening. We can talk about the entire opening of Jack's Wife if you want, but this little bit of the scene in particular, I've always loved him in it. I love what the scene is and what it's about. But yes, number 7 on my list, my top 10 favorite Romero film scenes in the 60s and 70s, etc., etc. Fuck yes. Experimental George. I lied. Jack's Wife is Season of the Witch, Hungry Wives, if you want to call it that, Grande. I love that film. I don't know. It's grown on me so much over the years because for one, it's George. It's the first film that was 100% George. It was his script, his film. He always said over the years that was the one film that he wished he could go back and remake because the idea and everything is there, but they just didn't have the time or the money to really make it what it needed to be. But I think for what it is, I think it's a really interesting, really mature film for, especially a male filmmaker, which George would have been early 30s when he made Jack's Wife. Really mature film for George to make. And that entire opening sequence, which is kind of the whole scene, that entire opening sequence, the whole dream sequence there, that's it. I love the first 10, 15 minutes of Jack's Wife, whatever it is. The visuals of it, the sound, what's being said, the et cetera. I love that because, of course, what he's talking about with that is oh, you've never wanted the et cetera, but maybe you should look into that. You're not getting any younger, type of thing. Of course, he's talking about fucking banging the fucking handyman Ray Lane over here. But of course, this is all just her dream. It's experimental. Here's your friends. They're all sitting around the table. That weird camera angle and the weird lens. But yeah, I've loved that opening sequence. And another scene that I could have put on this list, honestly, is the "I'm turning you on" scene. Where the Ray Lane pretends to get Jan White's friend, played by Ann Muffley, get her stoned on a cigarette and tell her that it's weed, just to prove, so he could prove a point that if you believe something strong enough, if you believe that you are smoking weed, you will feel a high. Love that scene. It's a long dialogue scene. It's a very natural. It's very Cassavetes feeling to me. So I've always loved that scene as well. But I had to include that opening scene, etc. I love Ken Peters in that. I think it does a great job setting the scene. It's oh yeah, don't forget to pay the bills and all this. And she's kind of, I don't know, confronting life and just getting older and. She's about to become an empty nester. Her daughter's older now, and her daughter really doesn't need her anymore, kind of the way she did when she was a kid. And I don't know. I've always loved that. Like I said, Jack's Wife is one of those films that has grown on me more and more over the years. The more that I see it, and yeah. And again, it's just experimental George. It's the first film that George. It was 100% completely his script, his screenplay, his idea. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to it. Is it flawed? Yeah, I mean, it's low budget guerrilla filmmaking. Like I said, George didn't really have the time to put into it as much as he wanted, I think. But for what it is, I think it's a really interesting film, and I think that opening sequence there, from the time the film begins all the way through when she wakes up, I think is honestly some of the most visually interesting stuff that George ever did, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's number 7 on my list. Let's see. You guys aren't too too stoked about that one. John says it was Autopsy. That's right. Because I just watched Autopsy for the first time not too long ago. Ed says, talk about living in her head for 5 minutes. You can kind of feel what she was feeling. Yeah. I think that's the whole idea. Is like the whole dream sequence there at the beginning. You're in her world. She's following behind her husband. That's her identity is Jack's wife. Like she's not an individual anymore. She feels like she's just Jack's wife, which is kind of where the title comes from. And you see it all all the little nuances of the little dream sequence and the weird experimental noise, music, or whatever you want to call it. And then it cuts to her in the house, and then there's this guy that's just showing her around the house. Like, oh, okay, here's everything you need, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I've always loved that scene. Even from the first time I saw that movie. The first time I saw that movie was awful. I didn't like it at all because it was on VHS and it was old and you couldn't really fucking tell what the hell was going on in it. But the first time I saw it, I was just like, wow, this is actually pretty trippy shit here. And I kind of dug it. So, and John says, after Living Dead Weekend, I got Ken Peters to send me a bio for the Night website. He threw in an et cetera, et cetera, et cetera as a little Easter egg for the Romero fans. I told him I loved it. That's awesome. Yeah, he gets it too, because as soon as I picked that picture, he just looked at me and he was like, oh, okay, I know what you want. And he signed it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, yeah, I love it. John says, Jack's Wife's really a smart film. It really is. It never hit me how similar it is to Martin, and I'd say Martin is the more improved Jack's Wife because it's not as drab a premise. Yeah, I've said that before. I've heard that said before that Jack's Wife is kind of like the distant cousin of Martin, stylistically, and kind of what George is trying to say with the whole idea of like if you believe something strong enough, like you kind of convince yourself that it's really like Jan White's character, if she believes strong enough that she's a witch and she put a spell on the Ray Lane character that he's going to show up, and like if she believes it strong enough, he will show up, or she'll just end up calling him, like, oh, I knew you would come if I called you, type of thing. But it's just George taking the piss out of your old school horror mythology, whether it's witchcraft or vampirism or whatever, George bringing it into the real world and saying like, yeah. That's not how it would really happen. If it really happened, this is how it would be in reality. George being the realist. Granny says, I feel like Hungry Wives is his most avant-garde movie in a good way. Awesome movie. I love how you are sticking. You're just going to call it Hungry Wives, and you're sticking with it. I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's a very avant-garde. That's a good way to put it. Very avant-garde. And I think George has pointed that out too. He's like, yeah, I was watching a lot of, because that was kind of a big thing, like the French experimental films around that time. And George was like, yeah, I was trying to do my impression of those European expressionist films or whatever the hell they were called at the time. But yeah, again, it's a very mature subject matter too for a young man to, which I know Nancy Romero, who was his wife at the time, is credited as the producer of the film. I don't know how much input or how much she really had to do with the film, honestly, because I know Gary Striner kind of stakes a claim as being the real producer of that film. I would love to ask him or talk to him about that more. I haven't heard him really talk about that, but I also have heard that he doesn't really like to talk about it too much because it was such a unpleasant experience, I guess. But I've always thought that too. It's very, while it is very I wouldn't say pro-feminist, but it is definitely inspired by the feminist movement that was happening at the time. It's also, by the end of it, you kind of see like George kind of saying like, oh yeah, you think like this is kind of the way to go, but you're forgetting this and you're forgetting this. And George is kind of even poking holes in that back in the day. Like George was just like, fuck it, I'm going to poke holes in every ideology that I can think of. Which I respect that totally. Steven says, interesting scene, especially for the time it was made, has been done to death in modern era, but then it was very fresh. Time capsule of the times and a young filmmaker finding his way. That's very, very true. Yeah, you see shit like that all the time now, for sure. Just those weird, trippy dream sequences and stuff. But yeah, at the time, especially for Romero too. Like Romero really wasn't known for his experimental, I don't know, psychedelic visuals or anything like that. So I think, again, it was just a young filmmaker, like you said, a young filmmaker trying to figure it out, trying to find his style, his thing. And I think it's a really interesting, part of George's career, that film. It's not for everybody. I know UB from Dead Pit was not a fan of it. I mean, that was like his least favorite. But, it is what it is. It's not for everybody, for sure. John says, also, Jack's Wife is a better title because the logo of the CK is also the necklace that Marion wears at the end. That's true. That George, what a genius. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, that title is the best title. Like Season of the Witch, I get it because they use Donovan's Season of the Witch in the film, and it's a little more, it sounds a little more horror-ish. I mean, Season of the Witch was, again, used for Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, And, of course, they used that title when they re-released it on VHS. And then Hungry Wives, of course, that just sounds like they were it just sounds like a fucking porno, but Jack's Wife, like, definitely is pretty much perfectly captures what that film is about. Like, that's who she feels like she is, and she's trying to break away from that. She doesn't want to be known as just Jack's wife anymore, type of thing. But yeah, that's a good point, too, with the CK on the logo there. John says, I would say Nancy was more of George's assistant, a la Christine and Dawn. I think they just gave her that title, honestly. That sounds like, because I don't know anything about Nancy Romero. I don't know dick all anything about her. I know that they were married at the time, and they were, she was, they were divorced by the time he met Christine. Or no, they were going through a divorce by the time he met Christine. But yeah, I don't know much about Nancy at all. You can't, I'm sure you can find plenty on it, but me personally, I've never been able to find much of anything on Nancy. So if you find any information on Nancy, I'm all ears. Because I know she worked for. Remember you telling me she worked for the Ketchum and I forget the name, but that's kind of where she came from, if I remember correctly. Davey says, love the ticker down below now, just now seeing it as I've gone from phone to computer. There you go. Yeah. Always got to have the rescue stations rolling. If we take the rescue stations down, they'll tune out. They won't watch us. They'll tune out. That's my motto. Always got to have those rescue stations on the air at all times. Brett says, Travis Crawford's commentary on the Arrow Blu-ray really brings an appreciation to Season of the Witch. Wish I could have met Travis. Love so many scenes in it. Glad it's in the list. Yeah, I've actually never listened to that commentary before. I've listened to a couple of Travis Crawford's commentaries. I think on the Dawn of the Dead, he did one on the second site. But I've never actually delved into any of them on the Arrow versions of the Crazy Season of the Witch or There's Always Vanilla. But I did see that he had passed away a couple of years ago, which was kind of surprising. I had no idea that he was even sick. I feel like I was friends with him on Facebook or something too at one point. But yeah, I've never actually listened to that commentary. Might be an interesting one to listen to. I'm usually not a big fan of like film historians or whatever. Just kind of talking about their opinions and stuff on these movies, but I guess if you can find a good one, it's kind of worth it. Let me see. All right, so where are we at? Number 6. Number 6 on the list. I told you I could talk about this shit for a while. So number 6 on the list is the man himself, chewing the scenery. It's only he can. Do you believe in demons, Father Howard? I love George in that scene. George was a good actor. Like, again, I'm talking about Roger McGovern. There's something natural about George's performance in that. Like, he just, and I get it, it's his material, and he knows how he wants it delivered and all that, so I'm sure it's easier to do, but I've always just loved that scene. I've always loved George in that scene. And the way he portrays a young priest who's just kind of like, oh yeah, I don't really know what to believe in all that. He's not the old school guy. He's kind of, he doesn't really believe in the demons and possessions and stuff like Kuda and the old timers do. He's a new young hip priest for modern times. And just the dismissive, just kind of like his, like when he's like, oh, actually I haven't heard. He may have already passed. He does the little thing and just pops the shit in his mouth. Great scene. I love that scene with George. George was such a underrated actor. I'd love to have seen him do more acting. But again, to me, like that's the best example of George the actor. And again, it's one of those scenes that anytime I'm watching Martin or I'm doing something and Martin's on in the background, when that scene comes on, like I gotta watch it just for George. Yeah, I don't know. That's to me, like that's like the scene itself. I mean, it's Martin kind of when they're sitting there eating, and of course the wine at the beginning, which I didn't have in that little clip, but the whole wine conversation. It's like, I don't think it'd be sacrilege to say that the wine at St. Vincent's is putrid. It's like George is more like this character, Father Howard, is more interested in the alcohol that's being served more so than actually talking about, demon possession or anything like that. And then he starts talking about The Exorcist, and it's just like the complete opposite. He's the complete opposite of what Kuda is hoping for in a priest. I don't know. I just think it's great. I think it's George. It's the best example of George the actor. I think that's out there. Of course, he's got a little bit in Dawn. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, he's got the little cameo in Silence of the Lambs. A lot of voiceover work over the years. You hear a lot of George in the voiceover stuff, but always love that scene. Always just for George and his performance. It's pretty simple. Like that's why I love that scene. Is George and his very natural chewing the scenery type of performance in it. So yeah, that's number 6 for me. George Romero is Father Howard. Love it. Grande says, Davey, one time me and Alpha did a simul stream and he had the ticker on the bottom and one of my viewers started Googling what happened in Pennsylvania. I remember that. I know, I think that confused a lot of people when we did that simulcast. Because I think, didn't somebody else comment or something after the fact and was like, what is all that shit at the bottom? What does all that mean? So yeah, it was a little confusing. But yeah, I totally remember that. That's fucking hilarious. Davey says, great performance by George here. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he's just kind of chewing the scenery, very natural. Like I think George is a better actor than I think he ever got credit for. I would have loved to have seen him do more, honestly. Yeah, John's saying here, man, it's such a shame George didn't act more. I also love that little bit he did in the film where he's fishing and goes, is this heaven or what? So natural and genuine. Yeah, that's from a film 2014, I want to say, called A Fish Story. I think it's called A Fish Story or whatever. It's like this little low-budget indie film made up in Canada that I think the director of that film was one of the guys that helped George work on some of his later stuff up in Canada. And George kind of did a cameo for him in the film. And yeah, George is just... I love that because it's like one of the last things George ever did on screen, and it's just kind of very apropos, with him being, gone a couple of years later. He's just sitting there, he's like, is this heaven or what? And just that big smile on his face, Yeah, I would have loved to have seen George do more acting work. I mean, not even in his own stuff, just kind of like what Cronenberg did in like Nightbreed. Maybe not so much that. I don't know if George could pull that off. I mean, Cronenberg's kind of a creepy guy already, so he kind of could play that role, I think. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen George do more. Like I said, he has a little cameo in Silence of the Lambs. What else? Not a whole lot. Yeah, George is usually the type to just stay behind the camera, but yeah. There you go. Williamson's cigarette, of course. Love it. Yeah. Gotta have the cigarette. Steven says, George Romero playing a 70s progressive Catholic priest, classic. Also loved the 70s haircut. Oh, yeah, that was totally George, fucking, hip George, hip 70s George. Groovy George is what we call him. And that was like clean shaven, like pre Dawn of the Dead George, too. Of course, there was a little, I don't know if you guys caught it when we did, when I showed the little clip from the Crazies a second ago. But you get a glimpse of George as well, clean shaven, young, with the hip hairstyle, And then Dawn of the Dead rolls around and he just says, fuck it, and just like grows the beard out and grows the hair out, and he just becomes like immersed in making Dawn of the Dead. And by the end of it, he just, Dawn of the Dead aged that man. It seems like it aged him fucking 10 years easily. But I mean, that's kind of what happens when you're making a masterpiece, Since says pastor of a church that is no longer in Braddock, only a parking lot now. Yeah, the church itself's no longer there. That's true. Which I think in the film it burned down, but I can't remember if they were going to use that church and then it burned down, so they had to adjust the screenplay. I can't remember how that worked. But yeah, in the film, the church is burned to the ground. So, it says, did that priest even go to Catholic school? It doesn't seem like it, does it? It just seems like something he decided to do on a whim. It's just like, hey, fuck it, I'll be a priest. That sounds cool, man. But yeah, love that character. I would love to have seen more of that character in the film, honestly. I mean, of course, he's also in where he's introducing Father Howard, or not Father Howard, but Deacon Roy, when he's, of course, J. Roy, for any of the Tony Booba fans out there. He's in that scene as well, but actually the dinner scene there with Cuda and Christine and Martin is kind of easily, that was definitely going to be a top 10 scene for me. So yeah, so that was number 6, George Romero as Father Howard and Martin. Number 5, getting down to the nitty gritty now. The top 5 of my favorite Romero film scenes. This is a good one. Number 5, Roger comes back.
Your calm helping way. You do irritate people by the illogical way. It's an illogical way.
Illogical hell. Illogical hell. I'm showing you a way that we can up the food supply 20 times.
The food supply for who?
For a whole specimen that is walking around there in increasing numbers.
We should feed them?
What else are you going to do with them? Give me an alternative.
I thought you scientists could come up with an actual way to solve the problem rather than feeding the opposition. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, I can think of one other alternative. Yes. Since they seem to congregate in heavily populated areas, and since we haven't touched upon our nuclear resources, why don't we drop bombs in all the big cities?
You're probably serious.
I'm deadly serious. What are the choices? They won't run out of food, young lady. That's the problem, you see. And they won't run out of food while we're still alive.
These kind of things out.
Logical. Rational. Love that scene. The suspense, the way that it builds. You see the blanket slowly coming down, and you see Roger's face. You see... I love Scott Reiniger's performance in that scene. And I'll tell you why. I've appreciated it more and more over there, like every time I see it. Because you see so much. As an actor, Scotty's doing so much in that moment. Wrestling internally. Like outside, he's got, he's a zombie. He's coming back. But internally, he's struggling, fighting it. He doesn't want to come back. I'm going to try not to. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his face. And it's almost as if Peter knows he's gone. He's coming back. Why does Peter take so long to pull that trigger? Put him out of his misery. It's almost as if Peter's waiting to see, is he really going to fight this? Is he really going to overcome this? Is he really coming back? Because when he comes, like when the blanket comes down, Roger just lays there for a second with the look on his face of just like, oh no, here I am. He doesn't reanimate immediately and come right towards Peter, type of thing. There's a struggle there, and Peter is almost like waiting. like with the small little bit of hope of like maybe he can overcome this thing, even though he really, like, you know, when people do that, when they think they you know something's not going to happen, but there's like but maybe, what if type of thing. I love that whole tension there, and then he slowly starts to rise, and it's like Peter realizes, like, no, he's gone, you know, and of course the there's so much going on there, and it builds so perfectly. The whole background with the music and the intensity of the music building and building, and then you got, you know, Dr. Roush on the TV, you know, and it's just like you can hear the world falling apart outside of the shopping mall while you're watching this really tough moment where one of your main heroes in this film is coming back. And it's the first time you see in any of Romero's zombie films one of the main, like, your main hero coming back from the dead as a zombie. Because you gotta think, like, Night of the Living Dead, it's like we didn't see Ben come back because Ben, you know, gets it before he even got a chance to get bit. We don't see whatever happens to Barbara. You know, Tom and Judy get blown to bits. I guess you see for a second there, you see, you know, Harry Cooper and Helen Cooper come back, but you don't really get, you know, I mean, I guess Harry's not really your hero, but it's with Roger, it's a character that you grew close to as the film was going on. You became attached to as one of the lead heroes of this film, and then he's coming back as one of them. And then, like I said, just the stuff on the TV. Dummies, just so quotable, like everything in there, like fucking Richard France is so good in this, and of course you got Howard Smith, who's like just it just sounds like a bunch of people talking, like he's just like the total like New Yorker like talk show host guy, you know, he's Howard Stern-esque, I guess you would say. It's just a perfect scene. It's such a turning point in the film too. Because before this, it's all, you know, they're shopping, they're having fun, they're enjoying the fruits of their labor, and then reality just comes and smacks them in the face in this scene because they're watching the world falling apart on TV while also their friend is in the other room dying and coming back and then getting shot. Like, it's just, there's so much going on in that scene. It's so well done. The anticipation of, like, is he or isn't he going to pull this trigger? What's going to happen here? Why is he hesitating? Like, there's so much going on in that scene. I think it's a brilliant scene and really, really well done. So number 5 on my list, from Dawn of the Dead, Roger comes back. What do you guys think? John says the music, dramaturgy, I think that's how you pronounce it, absolutely makes this scene. I love the entire library record. Yeah, like I was saying a second ago, yeah, just the build and the suspense of that scene, you know, I think it's fantastic. Since says, hey, what's this Dawn of the Dead? I need to check it out. Hey, yeah, if you've never seen it, check it out. I don't want to give any spoilers. Like I said at the beginning, but when I started doing this countdown, like, there's going to be some spoilers, so I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but yeah, if you haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, I may have spoiled a major bit of the plot there, so I apologize. Davey says the way the action on the crescendos, along with everything else going on, and I love that. Yeah, even just like the TV broadcast, the way that conversation builds and builds and builds to where they're just screaming at each other by the end of it, and everything's collapsing. Then, of course, Fran's just like, it's really all over, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it's just so much going on in there. And I love that at this point in the movie, they're living an existence that is just barely worth it. Yeah, it's 100% true. Williams says, Roger, favorite character in a zombie film, always bummed when he gets bit. Yeah. And just listening, and I've just listening to Scott Reiniger talk about his performance in it too. Like, if you ever get a chance to ask Scotty about, like, you know, what was his motivation, like, he put like a whole character arc in his head of like who this guy was before all this happened, like why is he the way he is, you know, and you can totally see it as the film's playing out. Like, and if you watch it from the moment that Roger comes on the screen, when they're on the rooftop he's calm, cool, collected, like, when you go in there, don't pop off, all right? Like he's got it. He's got this under control. But then he starts to see the shit hit the fan, and as the film goes on, and as shit gets worse and worse and worse, his mentality just deteriorates as well. It's slowly, you can see just little bits and pieces, and then eventually, by the time you get to the trucks and perfect baby, perfect, like he's fucking gone, like he's lost it. It's such a great performance from Scott Reiniger. I think it's an underrated performance. It doesn't get talked about enough, honestly. Uncle Bill, what's going on, man? It says this is probably my favorite Romero scene. It's up there. It's number 5 on mine. So, but yeah, I love that scene. UB says the whole "we whipped him, didn't we? We whipped him and we got it all" speech is one of my favorite acting in any Romero film. Yeah, because it's silly, but you're also talking about a guy who is in ridiculous amount of pain, who's probably delirious at this point, who's on morphine. So yeah, that's kind of how somebody in that state would probably act. Like he would just be that forthcoming about like, oh yeah, we whipped him, didn't we? Yeah, like again, Scott Reiniger in Dawn of the Dead is one of the most underrated performances in any horror film, easily, in my opinion. Steven says this was shot so well when I was younger. The gorehound in me wanted the blood, but it was so much more impactful the way it was shot. Brilliant. That's a good point too. You don't see the bullet in a movie where you see 1,000 headshots, and I think that was so smart by Romero to do it this way too. Because in a film where you see so many headshots and zombies getting shot in the head and blood splattering everywhere and brains going everywhere and all that, you see it constantly to the point where you're almost numb to it at this point. I don't think it works as well if you did see the gun blast. I think if you just hear it, and I think it kind of gets the point across, and it kind of means, it kind of does what it needs to do. Whereas I think the Flyboy, I think the gunshot actually kind of works because it was such a big ass fucking headshot. Like there was blood just splattered all over the back of that wall. So I think it was really effective in that way, and kind of the opposite way. But yeah, that's a really good point, Stephen. Robert says because he loves him, it's a beautiful moment. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that was kind of, they were BFFs. They were true buddies there, and he didn't want to pull that trigger, but he was kind of holding out hope that maybe Roger could have fought it off, but no. Yeah, exactly. Since sometimes dead is better. That's right. Brett says such a powerful scene. One of the many reasons Dawn is my favorite film of all time. Yeah, and again, like when I was trying to come up with just like trying to pick certain scenes out of Dawn of the Dead, at one point I was just like, I don't want to put any of them in there because I would just be leaving so many out. Because there's so many great scenes in Dawn. But again, it's just like one of those films that I don't look at it in terms of the scenes. I don't feel like I just look at it as a whole. Like everything leads to one thing. It's like I said, it's like the whole thing. It's like a good film should be, this happens, therefore this happens, instead of this happens, and then this happens, because every scene should lead to something else, and that's kind of what Dawn does. It's every scene builds to another scene, the next scene, the next scene. Anyway, yeah. Guys, I could fucking talk about Dawn of the Dead for the end of time, so. Justin, what's going on, man? Justin Moreno is in the house. Says that's why he was chugging that jack. It was hard for him to kill Roger. That's right. It was a tough night for Peter. That's for sure. It was a tough night for all of them. Here's one to you, Roger. Ed said, good pick. Every zombie movie needs that scene of waiting for someone to come back and their friend or family is waiting to do the dirty deed. That's right. And that was kind of, is that the first time we see that in a zombie film? The whole idea of like the friend or the family member having to execute their loved one like that. I mean, Ben kind of takes out Helen and Harry, but they weren't like, close friends or anything like that. Can't really think of anything in like, no, I don't know. Anybody think of anything like that happened, like a scene like that type of scene prior to Dawn of the Dead? That's what I'm getting at, I guess. It says we don't see that. We don't see the shot. Neither does Flyboy or Fran. A personal movement between Peter and Roger. That's right. That's good point. Good point. Uncle Bill says it's like Roger doesn't want to admit that it's over too. He's holding on to that idea that they won. The anger there too when he screams, "We whipped him and we got it all." Yeah, yeah. Just trying to have some kind of victory, I guess. But yeah. I love Scotty's performance in that, and it makes total sense the way that Scott, if you hear him talk about it, the way he kind of thought about that role. And the way that he approached that role, it makes total sense that he went on to teach acting after that in Los Angeles. So if you've ever wondered why Scott Reiniger was never in more films, is because he went on and he became a teacher out in California for acting, to teach people how to think about acting. And William says Roger brought Peter along. He saved him. That's true. Yeah. That they had that immediate connection, that immediate bond. Yeah, it's a great scene. Love that scene. But I love this scene next. Number 4 on my list, and this is one that's some of you might think is out of left field, but I absolutely love this scene. I know Ed loves this scene. This is a scene when the first time that I saw it. This is the scene that drove the entire film home for me. Like, the film up to this point was just kind of one of the, it was like, okay, I get it. It's like, I get what they were going for here, but, it's interesting. It's, it's experimental, well done. But when this scene hit, I was just like, I get it now. So number 4 on my list is the little girl from the amusement park.
3 little pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs went out into the world to seek their fortunes. Now, the chicken? Oh, I'd love to have a piece of chicken. I haven't had anything to eat for some time. Oh, thank you, dear. Wouldn't you like to have a piece too? Now, the first thing each of them had to do was to build a house to live in. The first little pig met a man carrying a bundle of straw. "Please, sir," he said, "give me some straw to build myself a house." The straw house was quickly built, and the little pig was just settling down nicely when a big bad wolf knocked in the door and said, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chimney chin chin," said the little pig. Isn't that funny? Then the big bad wolf huffed and he puffed, and he puffed and he huffed, and blew the house in. He ate up the first little pig, and that was the end of that little pig. Now the little pig had built himself a house of bricks. It took him much longer to build a house of straw house than a house of sticks. The little pig had just got to the brick place when the big bad wolf knocked at the door and said, little pig, let me come in, and not by the hair of my chimney chin chin." I don't.
The pain, like Lincoln Mizell, man. So for years and years and years, of course, the amusement park was kind of a lost film for years, and it didn't come out until here recently on Shudder. And I'd only never known Lincoln Mizell from Martin as Cuda. It's just like this stern fucking guy, So when I finally saw the amusement park and I saw this scene, like it was the kind of like the feeling when you first see Tom Savini break down and cry in Night Riders. It's just like, ow, I didn't want to, like, I don't know if I wanted to see him in that light. Like, I wasn't prepared for this. That scene is just, there's so, I don't know, maybe it's just me as a girl dad now, I guess, I don't know, but just when the little girl is just like, "You want some chicken?" And he's just like, "Oh, I would love a piece of chicken." And he's like, "Would you like some chicken?" And she's just like, "No, I already had some." Just very straight ahead like that. I don't know, man. That scene gets me every time. Just watching it there again, like, um, just gets me. I don't know. It's just, and when the mom gets up and grabs little girl, grabs the book out of his hand. He's trying to read it quickly. He wants to finish the book for her before she leaves, and then she grabs the book and they walk off, and just the way that he just genuinely breaks down there and cries. It's fucking heartbreaking stuff. And like I said, up to that point, like when I first saw the amusement park, like it's very experimental. It's very like I got what they were going for. It was kind of what I was expecting it to be. So if you've never seen the amusement park, I guess I can just set up the scene to kind of make it make sense, I guess. So in the amusement park, Lincoln Meisel's playing this character that's kind of stuck in this amusement park. And it's supposed to be kind of showing you like, oh, for the elderly, life is a big amusement park. It's like when you're young, it's fun and exciting, but when the older you get, the more you don't want to be on the fucking roller coaster type of thing. So through this whole movie, he's just being ignored and battered and pushed around and told, go here, go there, robbed, anything and everything that can happen to a person. This man's just gotten the shit kicked out of him and just been bounced around this amusement park this entire film, and nobody wants anything to do with him. He's just kind of like dismissed and mistreated. And then at the end of the film, he comes across this little girl sitting there having a picnic, and the little girl waves him over, and he's like, "Who, me?" Like, and he comes and sits down and starts to read this book to her, and she's like the one and only character in that entire film that gives him the time of the day and treats him like a human being. And that's why he's so desperate to spend as much time with her as possible, because she's the only one that seems to care or really look at him as a human. I don't know. It's and then she gets taken away, and it's just like that was just his breaking point, and then it's just back to the amusement park, back to the the abuse of the amusement park, I guess. But I love that scene. Like I said, when I first saw that film, like it tore me up. Like it got me, because I wasn't prepared for that. I was not expecting that. I don't know who that little girl is, but she's cute as shit. And Lincoln Meisel, like, again, what a performance. Like you don't see that coming, because you're used to seeing him as Cuda in Martin. It's just completely stiff upper lip, like just completely different type of character. And then here he is, just like breaking down and being as vulnerable as you can be as an actor, and just like literally just letting yourself go like that. I don't know. I love that scene. To me, it's one of the most powerful scenes in any Romero film. And I know whether you like the amusement park or not, it's very, like I said, it's very experimental. It's something different. It's not, it's not for everybody. It's another one of those from the 70s that's just like, it's not for everybody. But that scene in and of itself is just, it's heartbreaking, it's powerful, and I've loved it from the first time I saw it. And every time I see it, it still just gets me. So yeah, number 4 is a little girl, amusement park. We got Robert's a fan. Robert says, love this scene from the amusement park. So I love my grandparents, but I was not there in the end. It breaks my heart. That is a good point too, and I thought about that when I watched this film for the first time too. It's like when you're a grandparent, it's almost like your grandchildren mean so much to you, and you want them there at all times, because they don't look at you as like, oh, the old folks. They're just like, you're the grandparents now. You're just like anybody else. So that totally got me too. Yeah, I totally understand it on that aspect as well. It's saying, oh yeah, great pick. This was the amusement park for me. Yeah, this is the scene that made that film for me. Like up to that point, like I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's cool to see like George's cameo in it, Bill Heinzman's cameo. And I get what he was going for. Like I could see what it was, but this was like the moment in the film that I was just like, wow, this is powerful stuff. Like that really fucking got me. Since saying, oh, no time for Cuda. No time for Cuda. Can't finish the book. Steven said it's a very well shot scene. That's why I wrote earlier, this is subjective. I have no issues with it being on your list. It's your list and you're entitled to it. Are you talking about this one? Yeah, I mean, it's Okay, so here you go. On my list, however, I wouldn't put it past Roger and Peter, but it's your list. Hey, I think just emotionally speaking, and in the performance that Kuda gives there, to me, it works, and on a level that I wasn't expecting a scene like that to work in that film, and to me, it's one of the more heartbreaking scenes of any Romero film, period, ever. So again, it's all subjective. It's all subjective. Yes, it's hunted, despised, living like an animal. Exactly. It says, I have mentioned this before, but Jackie Gleason has a similar scene to this and nothing in common, just not as Romero-ish. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. I've never seen that film before. Yeah, Robert's saying this one means a lot to me, bro. Yeah. I mean, it's there's definitely a lot there. Like I said, the amusement park's not for everybody, but I think that scene in general, my personal opinion, my personal list, it's got to be right up there. Because it's one that, like I said, anytime I watch the amusement park, if I'm doing something, sometimes it can just play in the background and I'm good. But yeah, when that scene comes on, man, I got to stop, and it takes me a second to kind of recover from it. And the scene that follows, it didn't show in that clip there if you haven't seen the amusement park, but after that, he kind of regathers himself, and you start to see people just kind of starting to walk by him again, in the same shot, like just out of nowhere, just people show up and just start walking by him again, and he just kind of gets up and falls back into the crowd and just kind of slowly saunters off back into the world where he's neglected and forgotten and ignored. I don't know, man. It just I think it works for me. It just works for me. Bonnie's saying that scene really makes me miss my grandparents. Yeah. And again, like just like Robert said, like when you're in your 20s, like I lost like the grandparents on my dad's side. I lost them when I was in my 20s, and when you're in your late teens and early 20s, mid 20s, it's like you're so in your own world doing your own thing that you kind of forget to go visit grandma and grandpa sometimes, and then when they're gone, it's like now I look back and I say, geez, like I wish just to talk to them and just ask them questions about, oh, what was it like back then, type of thing. Just the older I get, the more curious I am, whereas you're in your 20s, you're too busy running wild and doing what you do, I guess. But Robert says, my grandparents would love, but when they died, my family dispersed, and I don't know any of them now. That's true, too. That's a big thing, too. Yeah, as soon as my grandparents passed away, I don't see a lot of the family on my dad's side very much anymore, either. We all just kind of, like Christmas, Christmas, we'd all meet up at my grandparents' house, and now that they're gone, it's like we all have our own Christmas now, and we don't really see each other too often. And Steven says, I completely understand. I have the same opinion about a scene Brando did in Last Tango in Paris. Not one of the adult scenes, by the way. Okay. All right. So, number 4, the amusement park, little girl. Sorry, Robert. I'm not trying to bum you out here, man. Let me see if the next one is going to be. I don't remember what I have number 3 as. Is it going to be something? Oh yeah, this will perk everybody right up, actually. But no. All right, we'll move on here. Number 3 on my list. Let me see here. So yeah, 3, 2. Okay, make sure I got these right in order. But number 3 on my list, going back to the original, back to 1968, Night of the Living Dead. That's another one for the fire.
He's a dead one. Get up here. Nick, Tony, Steve, you want to get out in that field and build me a bonfire? You, Drag that out of here and throw it on the fire. Nothing down here. All right, go ahead down and give him a hand. Let's go check out the house, man.
There's something there. I heard a noise.
All right, Vince, hit him in the head, right between the eyes. Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.
Send the wagon through directly ahead. Over.
Yeah, spoiler alerts on that one, but yeah, number 3 from Night of the Living Dead. It's another one for the fire. Ben's demise, the end of the film. Love, maybe my favorite ending to any of Romero's films, and it still works to this day. And I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again just to prove my point that this should be at the top of anybody's list of favorite Romero film scenes. So, for October one year, this was probably 15 years ago. God, that long. Yeah, probably about 15 years ago. Fucking getting old. I went to the theater to see they were doing a Night of the Living Dead. It was right around Halloween. They were doing a Night of the Living Dead riff tracks special screening where they would show Night of the Living Dead and they would do like a live riff tracks thing. Riff tracks, it's kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 where they would, make jokes and kind of, have fun with the movie or whatnot. And of course, as the film starts, and I can tell, like, because I'm in there, I'm in there as a fan of Night of the Living Dead, but I'm watching the film with a pretty packed theater. I mean, it was a pretty full theater of people and I could feel like 75% of these people have never seen this film before. They're just there to watch an old, goofy, black and white horror movie for Halloween and make fun of it type of thing. It was that kind of vibe. But, I was cool. I was like, yeah, it's fine. So we're watching and the movie starts, and of course, everybody's kind of laughing, having a good time, It's like, oh, yeah, this is old and corny and cheap, whatever. But as the movie's going on, it's like people are starting to kind of get invested in the story. They're kind of getting invested, and as soon as the truck blows up and Tom and Judy get killed, you hear some people starting to go like, ooh, I didn't see that coming. All right. I wasn't expecting them to do that. And as it goes on more and more, like people are starting to kind of ignore the comedy, the riff tracks aspect of it, and they're just kind of watching the movie at this point. And at the end of the film, when that happens, I swear to God, when Ben gets shot, the theater just fucking goes silent. And there's these two younger women, they were probably in their 20s, just two girls like having a girls' night out. Let's go do something silly. Sitting next to me. And when Ben gets shot, one of the girls goes, like puts her hand to her mouth and goes, oh my God, and I was just like, still works. It's the perfect, and it wasn't supposed to be the ending. I think the ending was supposed to be they shoot Ben and Barbara survives or something like that, but they weren't too sure about that ending. And I know when they were trying to sell the film originally, a lot of the major studios wanted them to get rid of the ending and do something different with that ending. But kudos to them for sticking to their guns and saying, no, like this has to be like Ben made the wrong decision. He must pay for it type of thing. It's just a perfect, and the whole like posse aspect of it, and then and of course people look at it now with the through the eyes of the civil rights at the time and stuff like that, and what it kind of mirrored at the time with the posse coming in, and there was always the debate of like, oh, did they kill him because they thought he was a zombie or because he was black? And they were just like, hey, whether he is or isn't, like, one for the fire type of thing. I think it was just because they thought he was one of the ghouls, but that's just my thing. But I think people over the time, like over the years, people have kind of looked more into some of this stuff than I think there was actually there. I think George has said that before too. He's like, none of this was, hey guys, none of this was in there when I was making this, but you guys can look at it how you want. But again, like I said, to me, I think this is probably my favorite ending to any Romero film. I think it's a perfect ending. And then, of course, the still frame photography at the end where they're hooking Ben and dragging him out and throwing him into the the big wood pile right next to the cemetery ghoul from the beginning of the film. It's just like, yeah, they're just treating him just like they would, one of the ghouls. And it's just, it's so impactful. It's such a downer ending too, man. I don't know, man. To me, it's the perfect ending, and like I said, probably my favorite ending to any Romero film. But what are you guys saying? I see you guys throwing in some comments here to the chat. Yeah, Bonnie saying that crushed me. One of my first damn memories. Yeah, that, like I said, the girl in the theater, I'll never forget her. Just like, because at first it was just like, oh yeah, we got popcorn and it's just a fun romp or whatever. And of course, I mean, it's funny because they're getting into it, but they're still like the people talking, kind of making the jokes or whatnot. But by the end, she literally was just like, oh no, she did not see that shit coming. I was like, yeah, still works. Justin saying number 1 is Day of the Dead, Roads Getting Torn Apart. That will be on the next one. Like I said, I couldn't narrow all of them down to just one big top 10. So I'm doing it by time period. So this one's 60s and 70s. I'll do one of these somewhere down the road where I'll cover the 80s, and then we'll do 90s and 2000s. But yeah, trying to narrow down George's entire filmography down to just my 10 favorite scenes was just fucking impossible. That's right, John. There's Ed Vicari, newest member of Unearthing the Undead. You just put that out. Was it today? I think I saw that today. Again, hats off to you, man. That's killer shit you're doing. Uncle Bill said this scene is still subversive as hell. There's few filmmakers that would ever do this to this day. Yeah, you wouldn't see an ending like that now. No way. Definitely not now, actually. But yeah, it was just the balls to do it. And again, it's probably just George just saying, I don't know how to fucking end this movie, man. Just kill him. Like everybody has to go. That's kind of how George ended most of his films back in the day. It was like, yeah, everybody's got to go. But yeah. Very good point. Yeah, wouldn't see that ending today. Even if they tried to do that ending today, I think there would be pushback from the studios or distributors or somebody. Robert's saying perfect. I do believe it is the perfect ending. Sin says, how dare you spoil a movie from 90? Yeah, I know. Spoiler alert, guys. I told you guys up front. I'm gonna spoil some shit tonight. So, but I mean, if you're watching me on a Sunday night, I'm 2.5 hours into this fucking streamer. If you're still watching me on a Sunday night, I assume you guys have seen these movies before. I assume, but could be wrong. I don't know. Steven says, wow, absolutely agree. This belongs, no issue at all with it being on the list. Only question is, should it be ranked ahead of They're Coming to Get You, Barbara? Tough call there. Yeah, that was kind of a back and forth for me. But I just think this ending is just so iconic, and I think it makes the film. I really do. Like, I think if the film ends, it would have still been a fine film, but I don't think it would have been as impactful as it was if, like, Ben survives or Barbara survives. If they would have done the original ending where Ben does get shot but Barbara survives, I don't think it would have been as effective. But the fact that every character that you are connected to in this film, from the moment the film starts to the moment the film ends, every one of those characters dies. I think it's just like people are just walking away from the theater back in '68 was just like, I think that people didn't know what to fucking think of it. You didn't see films like that back then, especially like horror films. I mean, yeah, exactly, Bonnie. No happy ending here. Yeah, you didn't see much of that. John says, I saw that night Riff Tracks live too. First time I saw Night on the big screen. Wasn't the first time for me. I saw Night. I think the first time I saw Night on the big screen was that 35mm print in Dallas for the 40th anniversary. But it's probably the second time I saw it on the big screen for sure. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Sent the Riff Tracks live Fathom events. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun, but it's just one thing that always stood out to me. Is like, as the movie went on, people that you could tell had never seen this movie before were starting to just kind of get invested in what's going on in the movie. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Uncle Bill says, I noticed this same thing at the last Living Dead weekend screening. People were hooping and hollering at first, but there's something about that film that just pulls you in. Midway through, it was completely silent. That's right. Yeah, that was a fun screening. But yeah, there is something about that movie, and it's like going back to number 10 on my list. They're coming to get you, Barbara, and it's the perfect opening to a film that slowly builds, and you see the cemetery ghoul in the background kind of getting closer and closer, and then all of a sudden it's a threat, but the threat grows, and there's more and more of them, and it becomes a bigger issue than you originally think. And to me, it's like the film takes different turns. It's like the opening in the cemetery feels very, like, I love it, but it feels very like, oh, you would see this in a lot of low-budget indie horror films at the time. But when Ben shows up, it's like, oh, this is taking a different turn. I don't know why, but the tone of the film takes a different turn to me. And then after that, it kind of gets darker and edgier as it goes. And all of a sudden, you're seeing, like, intestines being, chewed on. It's like you didn't see that back in the day. I mean, maybe like a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie or something, but not in the way that it's presented in Night of the Living Dead. You know what I mean? Robert says, Night of the Living Dead, the original, is the most important horror movie ever made. Look what it made. Yeah. I mean, I look at it as the beginning of modern horror. Like what we get from then on with Last House on the Left, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, Shivers, Carrie, Dawn of the Dead, Halloween, Friday the 13th, all the way up to the slashers. Like, it all began with Night of the Living Dead to me. Like, I feel like that's kind of where modern horror began, in my opinion. John says, they knew before shooting Ben was to be killed, but they had second-guessed it. Dwayne convinced them that the ending, about that ending, and that is such an important part that rarely ever gets mentioned. Yeah, Dwayne was a smart guy. Dwayne understood what the character was and what the film needed and what had to happen to that character. I just hate that Dwayne died so young, and so back 88, man. Like, there's so much more that he had to offer. I feel like it's so unfortunate that he died so young. Steven says, thankfully Romero filmed it the way he did. He left it open for interpretation, and then life added more levels to it. That's right. It's and same thing when the Ron Robinson Theater in Little Rock showed night. A lot of black college kids were there. Afterwards, lots of debates over black aspects. Yeah, and again, it's a lot of that stuff. Like George will tell you, like that was not my intention. Like I didn't have that in mind. Like whether he did or didn't, that could be debated too. Because George is kind of sly like that, or he would just kind of say like, like go watch the discussion he had with Guillermo del Toro, where Guillermo's like telling him all this stuff, like, dude, you're a master, you did this, and George is just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, yeah. Like, George would just play it down, but George knew what the fuck he was doing. Now, whether he really intended it for it to be that, I don't know, but, Robert says the original Night is really the darkest movie Romero ever made. Well, Romero always said that was the scariest movie he ever made. That was his one intention in making that film, was to just make a scary horror movie. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, by the time that movie's over, it's like, geez, everybody we came to care for and care about in that film is dead. So yeah, it is pretty fucking dark and pretty bleak of an ending. Since says, like the Crazies, Night of the Living Dead had a cinema verite vibe to it, a lot of impact. Yeah, very true. The Crazies is another one that almost ended with just fucking, Romero was just like, let's just drop a bomb on him. Just fucking nuke the town. Fuck it. Yeah, let's get it over with. But alright, that was number 3, the ending of Night of the Living Dead. We're down to the top 2 on the list. Let me get the hell out of here. It's number 2 on my list. This is an important place in their lives.
What the hell is it?
Looks like a
Shopping center, one of those big indoor malls.
Oh my God.
No chance. Get it. Let's get out of here.
Wait a minute, they can't get up here.
Yeah, and we can't go down there.
Let's check it out.
Most of the gates are down. I don't think they can get into the stores.
I haven't seen any of them up on the second floor.
The big department stores usually use both floors.
If we can get in up top.
Okay. Guess the power's not off in this area. Could be nuclear.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
Yes, number 2, the arrival at the mall, an important place in their lives. I fucking love that scene. Talking a second ago about Night of the Living Dead and how everything kind of takes a turn at a specific scene. Dawn of the Dead, to me, the tone of it, everything changes when they arrive at that mall and you first get a look at that mall. When they land on that roof, the soundtrack, I love the use of that Goblin score there, that boom, 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 boom. It's so science fiction. It's so it's like they're landing on another planet. That's the vibe that it gives me when I see that scene. It's like up to that point they're on Earth, and then all of a sudden they land on some mysterious planet far, far away. It feels very science fiction to me when they land on that mall. It's almost like the film is taken into a futuristic. I don't know. It's so every time I watch Dawn of the Dead, when that scene comes up, I just immerse myself in it. I'm just like, holy shit. And of course, what the mall represents in the film, it is kind of like another planet or another reality almost. It's like they're escaping reality into this manufactured wonderland that they've somehow come across. Again, just the music, that boom, 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 boom. I'm sure George heard that the first time. He was like, how the fuck am I going to use any of this Goblin music? Like, what is this? But he used it to perfection in that scene. Just trying to, this is your first look at the shopping mall. And up to that point, I mean, we've seen, the airport and the tenement and all that. But when they get to the mall, the film just kind of takes it to another level, in my opinion. And just the idea of like what, the zombies in the parking lot, and they're still wandering around that shopping mall. You start to get an idea of like, oh, okay, like I kind of, the whole line, like I'd love that. This is an important place in their lives, and it's perfect. It reflects, it's looking at what's going on with the mall now, especially. We don't know how much longer that place is going to be in existence, but apropos, like it is an important place in our lives. Like that's kind of, it's the Mecca. If you're a horror fan, like that's kind of the spot where in my opinion, the greatest film ever, was made. I'm sure that's not what George was going for at the time, but it doesn't ring true. I do I do love that line. And then just the whole idea of, what are they doing? Why do they come here? Like, I don't know. There's so much about that scene just for me personally that I love. The music, the feel, like I said, it takes the movie in a different direction. It gives the film a different vibe. I think that's when the movie, you could really start Dawn of the Dead at that scene and it still works perfectly fine. So yeah, I don't know. I love that scene. That's number 2 on my list. An important place in their lives. Dawn of the Dead. What do we got here? Let me see what your comments are. John says Dwayne also agreed that George and company were so colorblind to Dwayne's situation, but Dwayne wasn't. So that element is certainly there because Dwayne was aware of it. Yeah, there was always that back and forth where, especially the scene where like Barbara has to, or Dwayne has to hit Barbara. Ben has to hit Barbara, not Dwayne. Ben has to hit Barbara. And George was just like, yeah, nobody's gonna care, And Dwayne's just like, are you serious? Like, I will be killed for this in some places. Like, I don't know. Like, George was colorblind to the word. I guess colorblind would be the kind of the word for it. But he was just kind of, cool. Just kind of hip to everything. He was just like, that's the past. Yeah, that's a good point. And Davey says, such a classic, perfect movie. I agree, perfect movie. Bonnie says, where do all the zombies go in 2025? So Walmart seems appropriate. Yeah, I've thought about that for years. I've always said, even going back to the early 2000s, I was like, if they do, which they eventually did, but if they ever do a remake of Dawn of the Dead, Walmart would be the perfect place for it, because even by the early 2000s, like, our mall in Hopkinsville was pretty much empty and done for, so... It says Ving Rhames drug out similar glass when he does the 2004 version of the scene. However, when you compare the two scenes, you see how Dawn 78. Yeah, when he throws the. Yeah, by the time they get to the mall in the remake, it's like the mall, there's no zombies in there, and it's just like, it kind of loses its feel. I don't know. It's not the same here. Uncle Bill says, I'll be honest here. You could pick any scene from Dawn, and I would agree. Well, that's what I was saying when I started this, and when I started trying to figure out what my top 10 would be. It's like, Jesus Christ, like, there's Dawn of the Dead as a whole. Like, it's hard for me to look at it in terms of scenes because everything builds from one to another. So, like, it's hard for me to just kind of pick certain scenes in Dawn of the Dead because there's so many that work for me. Same for Night, same for Martin. Martin's another one that is just kind of one of those films that I just can just get immersed in. But Dawn of the Dead especially, it's like John Lydon, Johnny Rotten said on IFC back in the day, it's like, I don't remember one specific scene about that film, and I think that's what kind of makes it perfect in a weird way. It's like it's not a movie about different scenes. It's about it's like a constantly moving thing. Like, I don't know. But yeah. There's plenty I could have picked from. John says, I still prefer the Cans cut using the Dawn theme. Yeah, I don't, man. I love the boom, 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 boom. And then that weird doop, 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 as it gets louder and louder as they're, surveying the roof. Like, there's just something so weird and, like, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like George is, like, making this shopping mall seem like they landed on Mars. You know what I mean? Like, they landed on fucking Jupiter. And just like this weird music's playing and they're looking at this. It's like, what the hell is it? Oh, it's like a shopping center, one of those big indoor malls. It's like they didn't know what the hell they were dealing with. It was such a mystery at the time. I don't know, man. I love that. Love that scene. Steven says, this scene is amazing for many reasons. Back then, from what I was told, shopping malls weren't that well known yet. Now they're almost extinct. How times have changed. Yeah, it's almost come full circle, yeah. But yeah, it's one of the first big, major indoor shopping malls in America. It was built in 1969, so yeah. It's pretty amazing. We talk about it all the time, it's like, well, can't imagine a world without the Monroeville Mall, but it's pretty amazing that mall is still there to this day after all these years, so it's had a pretty good run. It says, here's a shutdown mall in my hometown. They are more than welcome to it. Yeah, we got one here in Evansville, too, so. Since there's a theatrical line reading for sure, other cut is poorly delivered. Yeah, the theatrical, they've done a little ADR work for sure, as you can tell. Yeah, dead mall for the zombies. That's right. That's right. Since this goblin had a lot of fun with scents, as they should, used well in the scene. Yeah, yeah, I love that. It's just so quirky and weird and off-putting. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure Dirk would agree with that, Uncle Bill. Eerie Guts, what's going on, man? Good to see Eerie Guts in the house tonight. Says, agreed, the Goblin's Court felt unsettling and haunting. Loved the usage for that part. Yeah, yeah. Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're able to hop in here. But we are right at the end here. That was number 2 on the list. Hold on. Uncle Bill saying you can't talk any sense into Dirk about it. I've tried. He still calls it Yawn of the Dead. Well, you know. Dirk, it is what it is. I respect Dirk and his opinion. He's got good taste in some movies. I listen to him, but when it comes to Dawn, it's just like this weird blind spot that he has that I just try to look past. But it is what it is. But yes, number 2, Dawn of the Dead, important place in their lives, and that brings us to number 1 on my list. And if you guys have ever heard me talk about this scene before, you could probably guess which one it is. But to me, this is just going back to talking about Romero, the editor. This is the quintessential. This is the best thing that Romero ever shot, ever edited together. The way that it's sequenced, the way that it's put together, I think is brilliant. I can't say. I can go on and on about it, but I'll just go ahead and show you a little bit of it. And this isn't even the whole thing. I mean, this is just a snippet. But number 1 on my list of my top 10 favorite Romero film scenes, 60s and 70s, but I would say all time probably. The chase from... Yes, number 1 from Martin. It's the chase scene, and that's just like half of. That's not even half of. That's just a snippet of it. But you even get the part where they're playing kind of the phone game where Martin's trying to, on the phone downstairs, they're trying to call for help, and he's fucking up the phone so they can't dial through. And there's so much about that scene. It's like it's Romero taking jabs at like old horror mythology of like what it's like to be a vampire, to get, the old vampire, the Dracula lore of like being able to control your victims and get them to do what you want. But instead he walks into this messy situation where this woman's having an affair with this guy that's not supposed to be there, and it just throws his entire well-planned thing just throws it into fucking chaos. And all of a sudden it turns into one big long cat and mouse game where the guy is chasing him. He gets stuck outside. Martin has to run through the house and reload his syringe and take care of the woman, but then let the guy back in so he can hit him with the correct dosage to knock him out. And they're all chasing each other. There's so much going on in the scene. It's such a simple... What's going on in the scene is such a simple thing. If in the hands of another director, it would have just been a simple thing. There's just so much more to it. There's so many aspects to that scene. The phone aspect, and then the guy getting locked out of the house, and then Martin having to go and the shot. Maybe my favorite shot that George ever did, from up above the doorway when he's trying to get to the woman, and the two doors, she's trying to pull the door shut, and the two doors, and all you see, you're looking down from above. Like, so much about that scene I just love, even from the very get-go. Like, just the little bitty details in that scene, like where Martin's trying to unscrew the light bulb in the garage, and just all the little, and then the slow build up to it where Martin's like walking through the house, and you get those flashback scenes, the black and white flashback scenes, where he thinks he's chasing the girl into the room with the candles. It's just so much about it, and then it just builds to this moment where Martin has this idea, this fantasy in his head of what to expect. then all of a sudden he opens that door and it's just like, oh, there's some guy here and they're having an affair, and she's just like, I don't know him. And then of course there's the whole dilemma there where they could call the police, but then you would have a whole scene that with the police showing up at the house, and then all the neighbors are going to find out that she's having an affair with this guy while her husband's out of town, so they can't do that. So now they have to call and let the hospital know that they're on their way, but at the same time, Martin's on the other phone fucking it up, so they can't get through to anybody to get help. Like, there's just so much there, and it's so well laid out. It's so well blocked. I love it. I love that scene. To me, it's the one scene, like if I'm watching Martin again, everything goes down, eyes straight to the screen, and I'm just watching it. And George's editing, like again, talking earlier about the crazies and George's style and the way he would edit things together. Like, to me, this is the tour de force of George the editor, was this scene, the way he puts this together and pieces it all together and makes it as suspenseful. And I don't know. I can just praise this one all as much as I can. But that's why it's number one on my list of my top 10 all-time favorite Romero film scenes. The chase from Martin. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Am I crazy on that one? Since says I knew it was this or the train scene from where I love the train scene, the train sequence too. But to me, this one, there's just so many dynamics at play here. Like, it's a total cat and mouse game. It's total suspense. It's like you kind of don't want him, like, you don't want Martin to get caught. Like, it's kind of the fucked up thing about this movie, for me at least, is that there's this character that you're sympathetic with and you're kind of on his side, even though he is this horrible, like, rapist, peeping Tom, murderer, blood drinker, whatever. But at the same time, you want him to you don't want him to get caught. You want him to get away with it. You want everything to go well. And when it doesn't, it's just kind of like, oh Jesus, who am I siding with here? Will says same. I knew it was Martin, just didn't know what scene. Yep, that's the scene. That's the scene. John says, yeah, hard to deny. It still feels real, like we shouldn't be watching this. yeah. It's there. Like I said, that's kind of the whole thing about Martin, Season of the Witch. That was what George was trying to say. It's like, you see in like normal horror films and stuff, like the old monster movies back in the day, it's just not how it would be. It's like George took that, Dracula or the witchcraft aspect and brought it into reality and said, no, reality is much more messy. There's so many more elements at play at all times in reality that, and then, that's pretty much the whole point of Martin, is that, Martin on the phone saying, you can't get people to do what you want them to do, Bonnie's saying, oh yes, I love this scene. My anxiety, yeah. It is a very anxiety, driving, it's a very anxious feeling scene for sure. Just from the suspense aspect to the just like who's come from, and that's the beautiful thing about that house. I love that fucking house, and I swear to God, if that house ever comes up on the market, I will totally try to do anything I can to get a hold of that house, because that's my dream house. And if I can retire and die and live in that house, that's my dream. I don't know. But the house is perfect. That's why it was built. That's why that house was chosen for that scene, because of the architecture of the house. It's just like this weird maze that makes for a perfect house for a chase scene like that. It says Romero didn't do slasher films, but the chase scene can arguably be compared to the best chases of Jason, Michaels, etc. I agree. And again, it's all in this one house, this one confined area, but the house is so unique and interesting that it's kind of hard to pick up on. Like, it's disorienting almost, because you're just like, okay, why is there a door here? Are we on the second floor? Are we on the first floor? Why are these windows over here? Why can't he? It's a very discombobulating architecture to that house, and I think it's another thing that makes that whole scene works. Is the house set. Since says the flexitones sell the strange eerie vibe of the scene. Yeah. Again, Donald Rubenstein's fine work. Since says Scream sort of has a door scene like that. Yeah, that's right. That because she kind of closes the door to kind of block the door so you can't get in. Yeah, kind of like that. Not quite spot on, but you know. All right, Steven. What's Steven got to say here? Steven says, again, not going to argue because it's your list, and I would definitely consider it for a spot, but this is put over There's No More Room in Hell from Dawn. Yeah. I mean, that scene's fine. Like, I love that scene, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, I think in terms of George's displaying my favorite aspects of George, his editing and just kind of the whole feel of the scene. Yeah, definitely. It's number one on my list. Steven says, that's the great thing about these types of lists. You see interesting takes and perspectives that you may not think about. At least you're a Dawn fan and like The Foreign Menace. The Foreign Menace. Since says he's like the greasy strangler, horrible character in a way, but you like him. Yeah. That's what I always said. That's what I told John when I met John Amplis for the first time. I was like, dude, like what you do with that character is something to be so proud of, because like you take a character that has really no redeeming qualities other than the fact that he's, a young kid who's just kind of confused, and you feel kind of sorry for that aspect of him. But really on the surface, you're taking a character that is a murderer, rapist, a peeping Tom, stalker, like every bad thing that a person can be almost. You are him. You are cannibal, you drink blood, you're really fucked up. But you make him a sympathetic character. Like you care about him. You're like, oh my God, I wish he would just get help and get out of this, just get rid of this lifestyle. And I don't know, that's a hard thing to do, and there's not a lot of actors out there that could get away with that, I don't think. But Brett says, man, I totally agree that scene is an editor's tour de force, and Amplis was an acting tour de force. Also, Martin's ending is my favorite Romero ending, even overnight. Okay, wow. Yeah, I like the ending of Martin too, but yeah, that scene to me, like anytime that scene comes on, like that's just, I don't know, just hits the spot. Uncle Bill, it's just a costume. It's only a costume. The themes in that movie are still amazing. Love the ambiguity of what he was doing in that movie. Yeah. To me, like, that was George's favorite film that he ever did. Like, Martin was his favorite film. And of course, we got the black and white 2.5 hour cut that's out there that a handful of people have seen. Because Rubenstein's not letting it out, not letting too many people see it. I think the only people that have seen it, from what I heard, what Vulo said was Patton Oswalt and Suze Romero, and I guess probably Nicotero, but that's it. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see, because that's the version that George always touted and always loved and always talked about as like, this is one of the greatest tragedies of my life was that we lost that cut. Like, I love that cut, and even Gornick, because Gornick's not a fan of Martin as we've always known it. Gornick was never a big fan of it from everything I've ever heard him talk about it. But he does love. He just said, I do much prefer that 2.5 hour black and white. Like, that's the version of Martin that we should have got. So I don't know. Will we ever see it? Who knows? We'll see. But for what it is and what we got, like Martin, like I said before, is probably like my second favorite movie ever. Like, I'm just so all about that movie in so many different ways. That's right, Synth. There is no real magic. There's no real magic ever. It's just a sickness. I love it. So yeah, that's it, guys. My top 10. Steven, it's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys' top 10 is. If you come up with a top 10, put it down in the comments down below. And let me know what your top 10 would be, because, man, there's so many to choose from. It's easy to do like a top 10 Romero films as a whole. Everybody's going to have like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead at the top, Night of the Living Dead. Everything's going to be right there at the top that I think everybody kind of knows. But scenes are so subjective, as Steven says. Like, they're so subjective. Everything that what hits you, what affects you, whether it's emotionally or whether it's the editing or the acting or the action or what it means to the movie itself. Like, you know, it's such, ranking scenes is so subjective. So let me know what yours is down there in the comments after the fact. But appreciate it, UB. Appreciate you stopping in, man. I think you're going to be there in October, so look forward to seeing you again here in October for a Living Dead weekend. Like I said, guys, October, the return of the Living Dead weekend. Tickets are on sale now, October 24th to the 26th. Get your tickets now, thelivingdeadweekend.com. But yeah, appreciate it, guys. It's been a fun one. Again, another 3-hour stream. I was not prepared to do another 3 hours, but that's just how it fucking goes, and it is what it is. And I wouldn't want to spend my Sunday evenings doing anything else. So I appreciate you guys hanging out and spending your Sunday evenings with me as well. I'll be back next weekend with, actually next weekend is the 4th of July. I got something kind of cool that I'm planning on doing. I'm working on something now, something different. It's going to be a patriotic thing, or patriotic, but it's going to be an American themed type of stream. It's going to be called Dead, White, and Blue, Romero's America. And I want to kind of examine Romero's critiques and his views on this country and America and kind of how it, you know, mirrors society today. And just celebrate the 4th of July with an ice cold Iron City and a couple of sky flowers, and just have a good old time celebrating the birthday of our great nation. But we'll do that next week. Check out shop.alfaromero.store. Got a couple of new designs I'm planning on putting up here soon, but until then, check it out. There's always some kind of fucking sale going on, so most of the time you're going to catch something cool. But shop.alfaromero.store. One last time, thank you guys for hanging out. Let me get the last few comments here. Ed saying, heck, I might do my own top 10 Romero scene video and tag your channel in it. Do it, man. Do it. I want to see it. I want to see it. Synth says, bye all. Thanks for the show. Thanks for coming in, Synth. Always good to see you, my man. John, always a pleasure. Always good to have you in here. Bonnie says, I really enjoyed this. Thank you. And everyone have a great week. Have a great week, Bonnie. Hope you have a good rest of the night. Steven says, this was a wonderful experience tonight. Other than number 10. LOL, everybody. Have a good evening. Well, hey, I want to hear your fucking list, Steven. Let's hear your list, man. Put it down there in the comments below. And that's right, Bub, the ultimate patriot. Absolutely. But appreciate all you guys in the chat. You guys have been great tonight. And I'll see you guys next weekend. But until then, you guys have a great rest of the night, a great rest of the week. Stay cool, stay prepared, but always stay scared.